bastards, hope you've had a fantastic Friday, which is a thing I have not said for a very long time, because I hate Fridays. No. In case you're wondering why you got this video, because you missed my Monday announcement. Like I said, Monday, especially as we're all dealing with this coronavirus situation, we've got a new schedule. So, you know, an uncertain future, but silver lining, more of my dumb face and voice. But today, while I have you, I wanted to cover something that I've gotten a lot of questions about, and that is a vaccine for the coronavirus. So far, the Food and Drug Administration has not approved any vaccine for the virus known as SARS-CoV-2. And so, you know, you have a lot of people asking, how far away is a vaccine? Why does it take so long? What does it look like? And of course, who is making it? Okay, so first thing to note, there are tons of different vaccines in the works around the world right now. And each of these groups is racing to have their vaccine safe and ready as soon as possible. And if it was up to President Donald Trump, we would have one ready by November. But that appears to be impossible, right? And it's not just me saying that. I haven't been secretly a vaccine expert this entire time, surprise. It's health officials. They currently believe that it's going to take about 1.5 years to put any vaccine on the market. Though there are a handful of optimistic researchers hoping to have something ready in 1 year.
You said recently that you could have some kind of vaccine within 1 year or so. Right. How do you speed up that timeline, and how do you fix the problem you said you have, which is finding a manufacturer?
Right. Well, first of all, Margaret, that 1 year timeline would be the world's indoor record of ever getting a vaccine out, at least to be able to early deploy. You can't do any better than that. If you go any faster, you'd be cutting dangerous corners.
While that may seem like a long time away, the development of several COVID-19 vaccines are actually moving at record speed. All right, but let's talk about one of the vaccines shooting to be the first on the market. Back in January, we saw the drug developer Moderna partner with the National Institutes of Health. Reportedly, researchers there were working nights and weekends to develop the first version of this vaccine. And look, that development happened fast, because by the end of the month, Moderna had already received a grant from the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations to help them manufacture a batch of that drug big enough to be used in clinical trial. And then, late last month, the Kaiser Permanente Washington Health Research Institute received approval from the NIH to begin clinical trials of that vaccine in Seattle. Trials began this past Monday and involved 45 healthy participants between the ages of 18 and 55. So this part is known as a phase 1 trial. And according to Kaiser, this phase will last about 14 months because participants will need to attend 11 in-person visits. During that time, each person will be randomly split into one of 3 different groups, with each group then receiving a different dosage of the vaccine. With those 11 visits, they're getting 2 vaccinations, and the other 9 visits are initial screening as well as follow-up visits. And in this phase, researchers will specifically be testing, quote, the safety of various doses and whether those doses produce an immune response. Right? And when they say produce an immune response here, what they're saying is this potential vaccine going to produce antibodies? But notably here, in this 14-month phase, it doesn't actually study the effectiveness of the vaccine in preventing coronavirus infection. That work doesn't actually come until phase 2, which we'll talk about in a minute. But before we get there, I want to talk about what this vaccine looks like, because it's actually a lot different than the types of vaccines that we're used to getting. So the first thing you gotta know is this vaccine doesn't include any live form of the virus, though that is a common form of vaccine. You see it with vaccines for diseases like measles, mumps, rubella, and also for chickenpox, those usually containing a weakened version of the virus. To keep it really simple, it can infect you and replicate, but all the harmful parts are removed, so it can't actually hurt you. And so the way that this works is your body's immune system will then clear the virus out and know how to get rid of it again in case you get exposed to the actual virus later. Now, the coronavirus vaccine is also not what's known as an inactivated or killed vaccine. Those, along with live vaccines, are the other most common type of vaccine. With killed vaccines, you have the likes of the rabies vaccine, also the vaccines for hepatitis A, polio, and cholera. So the thing with these vaccines is that they cannot replicate, so your antibodies just attack what they're given. So kind of similar to live vaccines in that your antibodies are being stimulated to attack a specific virus, but killed vaccines are generally considered weaker. So they're also usually the vaccines where you're gonna need booster shots, right? Okay, so at this point, you might be like, Phil, okay, great, and now I know what it's not. Which I would say, shut up. I'm trying to educate you and also give you some information that you can repeat and sound smarter with later. Right, so the coronavirus vaccine, it's not a live vaccine, it's not a killed vaccine, it's what's known as an mRNA vaccine. And so, you know, here we're gonna be talking about virology. Things are gonna be naturally complicated, though, spoiler alert, I am actually an expert virologist. I'm not. I lied to you just now. But to kind of break it down on a basic level, this coronavirus is wrapped up in a capsule. On the surface of that capsule is what's known as a spike protein, and that spike protein is really important here because the coronaviruses use it to latch onto human cells. But because it's on the surface, it's also the first thing antibodies are going to recognize and latch onto. Now, the other important thing to realize here is that mRNA makes proteins, including that spike protein. And now what they've made is a vaccine that includes the mRNA coding for that spike protein. Right, so essentially the idea here is that if you inject this mRNA vaccine into your deltoid muscles, the mRNA will then use machinery inside your cells to make spike proteins. Right, and so what happens next is similar to how I described those live and kill vaccines a minute ago. In theory, your antibodies will then attack and remember that spike protein. So the idea would be you get this vaccine, and if you're exposed to COVID-19, your immune system should already be able to recognize those spike proteins on its surface and attack it. And something that was really interesting is the entire reason the development of this vaccine was able to move so quickly is because these researchers were able to use genetic sequences that Chinese doctors uploaded to a database really just days after the virus was discovered. So instead of having to rely on physical samples of the virus, Moderna was able to study the virus and the spike protein's coding, which is also why you saw Moderna getting this grant and why we're not talking about a traditional live or killed vaccine. Right, and so according to the NIH National Library of Medicine, researchers expect this phase of the trial to be completed by June 1st of next year. Okay, so that is phase 1, which brings us to...
Do you know what phase is next? Think hard.
That's right, phase 2.
Great job.
And in phase 2, as long as everything has been successful, this vaccine will then be tested in even bigger pools of participants. Remember, that first phase was only 45 people, so now we're talking about somewhere in the hundreds. Though it's still way too early to know exactly how many people they're going to try to test. Also, during phase 2, scientists will continue to further look at the safety of this drug, but the main goal here is to see if the vaccine is going to be effective against the coronavirus. Basically, does it stimulate an accurate immune response? Now, reportedly, Moderna is already actively preparing for a potential phase 2, with the company possibly starting to manufacture material for that phase in as little as a few months. And if this phase is successful, that vaccine will then move into phase 3 of the clinical trial. There it will be tested with even more people. Researchers will also look at things like side effects. They'll also compare it to some of the current treatments that we have right now, with the big question being, is this better than what's already available? Which, of course, right now we're talking about a situation where there is no other vaccine. But, of course, they're not the only one in this race. In fact, there are no lack of vaccines being developed. I mean, actually, CEPI, the organization that gave Moderna its grant, also gave out 2 others. One of those to a lab at the University of Queensland in Australia, and there, that lab included a stabilized and isolated synthetic form of the spike protein directly in its vaccine. The idea there is that using the actual protein will provoke a strong and accurate immune response. And they are actually planning to begin clinical trials by this summer. There's also another vaccine being developed by a company called Inovio, which has also gotten a grant from CEPI. Additionally, you have companies like Johnson & Johnson's Janssen, Sanofi, Pfizer, the biotech CureVac, also other vaccines in development in China, Canada, England, and other countries. But the key here is the development in the United States is currently the first to enter trials. Which actually, on the note of record speed, I wanted to dive a little deeper into that. Right, for example, you look back to the SARS outbreak that started in 2002. It took 20 months to get the vaccine to phase 1 trials. And then with Zika, which is the fastest we've ever seen a virus go from outbreak to phase 1 clinical trials, that still took 7 months to get a vaccine ready for testing. But then you compare that to here, where researchers finished working on this potential Moderna vaccine on January 13th, so just 2 days after those Chinese scientists uploaded the coronavirus sequence, and it's already being tested on people. That is unprecedented. Right, so 1.5 years, while it may sound like an incredibly long time, it is wild that this is even possible. But there's a lot of them, and they're always big. Even if everything goes according to the best of Moderna's plans or anyone else's plans, 1.5 years is still a long time for people living in the now. The world feels like it's changing, the weight of concern increasing. I mean, going back to that Zika example, that epidemic had pretty much already died down by the time that the vaccine was approved for clinical trials. Or SARS, that died down after 4 months, and whole companies just abandoned their vaccines afterwards. Which actually brings me to my next point. Money. Sweet money. And here's the thing. You have these outbreaks, but usually they don't last all that long, which, yes, is definitely a good thing. Do not get me wrong there, but that also means that no one's really going to be buying your vaccine after it's over. As a writer for Wired put it, no one wants to make a product that's not going to be used. Though with COVID-19, it does appear that this situation could end up being different than those previous outbreaks. I mean, you have some health officials worrying that this could be seasonal, and the federal government is also working under the assumption this pandemic could last 18 months or longer. You know, making vaccines is cost intensive. In fact, so much so that the vaccine business is dominated by just 4 companies: Pfizer, Merck, GSK, and Sanofi. And yes, earlier I did mention that both Pfizer and Sanofi are making vaccines. Reportedly, GSK has also started development on one as well. The Washington Post also reporting that Merck is pursuing either a vaccine or medication. Actually, I want to take a second to focus on Merck for a second. So back with the Ebola epidemic, Merck started developing a vaccine. That vaccine was approved and put on the market last year, but by then, the crisis was already over. All right, so Zika, SARS, Ebola, stuff like this keeps happening. Companies are called to disrupt their profit-seeking operations to develop a vaccine for an outbreak. That vaccine then fades, and many times these companies are left in the red. And that is where this big circle comes back around to CEPI. In a 2018 interview, CEPI CEO Richard Hatchett said that the drug makers, quote, have very clearly articulated the current way of approaching this. To call them during an emergency and demand that they do this and that they reallocate resources to disrupt their daily operations in order to respond to these events is completely unsustainable. sustainable. But that's also a pretty glaring catch-22 because you need these types of companies to develop emergency response vaccines. Right, so in 2017, in response to the way that the Ebola epidemic was handled, CEPI was formed as a private-public partnership. The idea being that it could award grants for swift vaccine development targeting emerging threats that the pharmaceutical industry might otherwise ignore. Notably, it was actually co-founded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust, with the Gateses pumping in $100 million. Also, you had countries like Japan, Norway, Germany, India, Australia, Belgium, Canada, the UK, though notably not the United States. However, back in 2006, the United States did found BARDA, the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, and it reportedly has also been streamlining the process for many drug manufacturers. I should also note that vaccines are not the only solutions being explored now. There are also other drugs that might treat the virus that are currently in phase 3 of clinical trials. And the biggest name that comes to mind here is remdesivir. It's made by Gilead Sciences, who make antiviral drugs for things like HIV and the flu. And the reason it's already in phase 3, which, if you don't remember, we said normally doesn't happen until years into a drug's trial, it's because it was originally developed for Ebola, but it's also shown success in animals against other coronaviruses like MERS and SARS. And so now it's being tested on COVID-19 as well. They are set to report their findings next month, and the doctors in the United States and Italy have been approved to test the drug on a small number of patients with severe COVID-19. And here, one patient in Washington even reported recovering after being treated, but one person, that's hardly enough for approval. Yesterday, we also saw Trump say that he's pushing for the FDA to approve hydroxychloroquine against COVID-19. Now, hydroxychloroquine is antiviral, but notably, it was developed to treat malaria. However, it has shown some success in patients with COVID-19, and it already has market approval. Okay, now, Trump said that it would be made available
almost immediately.
But we later saw the FDA kind of scale back Donald Trump's comments, saying to use hydroxychloroquine for COVID-19 patients, you'd need another clinical trial. Saying over the next couple of weeks, we'll have more information that we're really pushing hard to try to accelerate. And that will be a bridge to other therapies that will take us 3 to 6 months to develop. And this is a continuous process. There is no beginning and end. And to reiterate, these are not vaccines. So while solutions like remdesivir and hydroxychloroquine may help out those who already have COVID-19, it will not stop others from getting it. But, and once again, they are big and they are many, even remdesivir brings us back to a central issue. It was developed for an Ebola crisis that has since shifted, and they were looking for other ways to use the drug. Otherwise, like manufacturers of vaccines, their work and their money might go down the drain once the crisis ends. Right, which once again isn't to say that they should not put in this work, but it does appear like it's a greater reason why groups like CEPI have been set up and need to be set up. Right, its funding is one of the reasons we've seen such a fast response from some of these smaller startup biotech companies. And it's a model that could prove to be very, very effective in these moments of crisis. But yeah, ultimately that brings us to the end of the video. I know this is definitely a different kind of video. If you liked it, let me know. Hit that like button. Hopefully with this one you learned something, you feel more informed, more understanding of the situation that we're dealing with. Also, hey, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. We got daily, weekday videos. Also, make sure you have that bell click so you get notifications, because now I may even upload videos over the weekend. But with all that said, of course, as always, my name is Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you next time.
I hope you liked the video. Subscribe if you like it.
On this Thursday night, the deadline to crack down on the world's longest border. New details on how soon it could happen.
There is nothing we won't do to keep you safe.
Plus, the struggle to enforce social distancing. Italy's morbid milestone, the staggering number of deaths from the crisis overwhelming that country, and pumping out necessities.
We're supplying some of the old folks' homes.
The distilleries lending a helping hand during the pandemic.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We are once again focusing our program tonight on the COVID-19 pandemic. From the latest measures to tackle the virus to the efforts to get stranded Canadians home. We have full coverage of this fast-changing situation, but we begin tonight with a grim update from overseas. Italy, which for weeks has been overrun by cases, has now officially surpassed China's death toll. Italian officials reported 427 more deaths today. That sent the overall death toll surging past 3,400. And that's what Canada is trying to prevent. But health experts and the government warn the worst is yet to come. They're urging people to stay home. Here's what the Prime Minister said today when asked, how long will this last?
We've heard anything from weeks to months. We know this is a difficult and extraordinary time in which Canadians are taking difficult and extraordinary measures, and we will continue to do that until Canadians are safe.
3 more deaths were reported today in Canada. Alberta recorded its first. A man in his 60s. A man in his 50s died in Ontario. And there was another death in BC connected to a North Vancouver seniors care home. That brings the total number of deaths to 12. As for total infections, more than 860 people have tested positive. Of those, at least 10 people have recovered. All 10 provinces have detected the virus. In 6 provinces, 20 or fewer people have tested positive. Most of Canada's cases are in BC, Ontario, Alberta, and Quebec. Public health officials are pounding home the message, stay home.
Our collective resolve to overcome COVID-19 must be solid and unbendable. We don't just need to flatten the curve, we need to plank it. And we need everyone, from government to communities, families and individuals, to work together.
The federal government revealed plans yesterday to shut down the U.S.-Canada border to non-essential travel to help slow the spread of the virus. There are new details tonight on when that might happen. Here's Mike Armstrong.
Even a full day after announcing the closure of the Canada-U.S. border, negotiations continue. The Prime Minister says the plan is to close it effective Saturday morning, but the deal's still not done.
We are continuing to work on the fine-tuning of the agreement between Canada and the United States. I think it's almost there.
The two governments are trying to delicately balance the importance of cutting off non-essential travel, while at the same time ensuring trucks and workers who do have to cross can and easily. Critical food and medicine and supplies have to keep moving. The border isn't closed yet, but the government is appealing to Canadians to treat it as though it is.
Don't wait for Saturday to do this.
Now, the border closure is part of the entire social isolation effort to slow transmission and flatten the curve. To this point, 83% of COVID-19 cases in Canada have been traced to travel. But those positive tests were from transmission that happened a week and 2 weeks ago. How well social isolation is working won't be known for a couple of weeks from now.
So what I would like to see, and I'll be watching very closely, is in the next 2 weeks or so, what actually happens to that curve.
One area where the government is struggling is getting Canadians home. With airlines parking more and more of their fleets, options for travelers abroad are drying up. And it's getting harder and harder to land planes in countries that are also dealing with this crisis.
It's a very complex situation. We understand how frightening it is for people.
Now, the Prime Minister was asked about Canadians who traveled recently and are stuck, perhaps due to their own carelessness. Should taxpayers have to foot the bill to bring them back? Well, Justin Trudeau says right now the government's not judging people, it's worrying about helping people. Robin?
Mike Armstrong in Ottawa. Thanks, Mike. With the virus spreading, restrictions in this country are growing by the day. Many communities have banned large gatherings and ordered the shutdown of bars and restaurants. At least one province has unveiled strict penalties for anyone who fails to comply. David Aiken has more on the aggressive push to flatten the curve.
Airlines are already letting only Canadian citizens or permanent residents board planes bound for Canada. But airlines are also being told that no one, not even a Canadian citizen, gets on a plane bound for Canada if that traveler is exhibiting any COVID-19 symptoms. Those that show up at the gate with a dry cough, fever, or other flu-like symptoms will be required to do one of two things: complete a 14-day isolation and return to the airport symptom-free, or get a medical certificate certifying that the symptoms are not related to COVID-19. This could mean that some Canadians could be delayed returning home.
We're focused on trying to get our air operators to facilitate more flights to get Canadians home. We recognize that this is a very difficult and exceptional situation.
As for interprovincial travel, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is not prepared to set restrictions on that now, while Ontario's Premier said he was reluctant to have police or other authorities enforce social distancing guidelines.
People are cooperating, and we can't do this by really going out there and enforcing it. We need their cooperation.
Provincial and local public health officials already have significant legal powers, including the powers to levy fines or even seek jail times in order to enforce quarantines. But those powers vary and are generally seen as a last resort.
If someone's particularly high risk to someone else's health, that such approaches can be exercised. But one is not aiming for that to be the key response.
Still, the federal cabinet met Thursday afternoon, and as the Prime Minister said before joining that meeting, the cabinet is still considering what, if any, new emergency powers it ought to have and when they ought to be applied. Robin.
David Aiken in Ottawa. Irving has suspended all industrial operations at its shipyard in Halifax for a 3-week period as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The shutdown at Halifax Shipyard, Marine Fabricators, and Woodside Industries went into effect this afternoon. About 1,100 unionized workers have been laid off. The shipyard has federal contracts for 6 Arctic and offshore patrol vessels and for 15 Canadian surface combatant ships. South of the border, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases has surged past 10,000. That number is expected to grow even more in the coming days. The governor of California says projections show 56% of his state could get the virus. That's 25 million people in California alone. Across the U.S., health officials are sounding the alarm about a severe shortage of essential supplies. But as Jackson Prosco reports, the White House insists it's managing the response.
As U.S. hospitals begin to buckle under the weight of the new coronavirus, doctors and nurses issued a grim plea for more supplies to treat patients and to protect themselves.
In ICU, we see the people coding. We see the people on the ventilator. There's lots of unanswered questions.
With a dire shortage of protective masks and ventilators, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control relaxed its guidelines, suggesting medical workers with exposure to COVID-19 but with no symptoms can keep working, advising they wear scarves and bandanas if they run out of masks. But in Washington, the president was unwilling to entertain any suggestion of a failure to prepare.
We were very prepared. The only thing we weren't prepared for was the media. The media has not treated it fairly.
After weeks of delay, the U.S. is now relaxing laws to allow construction masks to be used by medical workers, asking for existing antiviral drugs used to treat malaria to be tested on coronavirus patients.
To determine if an experimental or an off-the-shelf drug that's used for something else can safely and effectively treat patients.
As testing improves, the number of confirmed cases has skyrocketed. There are now more than 3,600 in New York City alone.
It feels like I have a belt around my lungs, so I can't take too deep a breath.
2 members of Congress are confirmed to have the virus. Several more are in isolation as lawmakers debate a $1 trillion economic rescue package. The trajectory of infection suggests the U.S. is on the same grim path as Italy, facing an unprecedented crisis. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
The number of cases in Spain jumped 25% overnight. In France, 18%. Now, the Cannes Film Festival, arguably the world's most prestigious film event, is being postponed. But there's new alarm in Italy tonight. As Redmond Shannon reports, the death toll there has now surpassed China.
The Italian army on the streets of Bergamo, not to protect the living, but to transport the dead. The northern city is overwhelmed with bodies, so many of the victims are being moved for burial elsewhere.
Nurses and physicians are working round the clock, countless hours to fight this incredible situation.
Italy has now overtaken China in total coronavirus deaths, with a staggeringly high fatality rate. The nationwide lockdown is set to be extended beyond next Wednesday, a crisis worsened by many hospital staff testing positive too.
I contagi sono tantissimi, I morti.
We're not even counting the dead anymore, says this nurse. Our stress is through the roof.
Here in the UK, the government is being criticised for being too slow in encouraging and demanding social distancing. But on Friday, schools closed indefinitely, and bit by bit, London is grinding to a halt.
Some subway stations are closed, but British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said there is no prospect of a full lockdown in the capital.
We can turn the tide within the next 12 weeks, and I'm absolutely confident that we can send a coronavirus packing in this country, but only if we take the steps, we all take the steps that we have outlined.
Those steps include staying away from bars and restaurants, even though they're still allowed to stay open. Always an optimist, Johnson says there is hope.
We're in negotiations today to buy a so-called antibody test, as simple as a pregnancy test, that can tell whether you have had the disease.
The idea to allow people out of isolation as the crisis subsides. But the focus for now is managing a disaster that is yet to peak. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
The Queen and Prince Philip have arrived at Windsor Castle, where they're expected to remain during this pandemic. The 93-year-old monarch was seen leaving Buckingham Palace today. In a statement, she urged Britons, now more than at any time in our recent past, we all have a vitally important part to play as individuals. You can be assured that my family and I stand ready to play our part. Prince Albert of Monaco is also urging people to take proper precautions after he tested positive. The palace says the royal status is not worrying at all. The 62-year-old is believed to be the first head of state to publicly confirm having contracted the virus. Frustration and optimism on the front lines. Coming up, how healthcare workers feel and their message to the public. Anxiety, frustration, and a sense of duty. Those are some of the emotions being felt by healthcare workers on the front lines during the biggest health crisis of our time. Heather Yerkes-West shows us how some are coping and their concerns looking forward.
Inside this Toronto hospital, healthcare workers are getting ready to face a challenge unlike anything they've ever seen.
The situation that we're seeing is unprecedented. I think for frontline physicians, there is an element of frustration in that we feel we know what needs to be done today to protect the public from the resource limitations that we foresee.
Dr. Michael Warner says government messages about social distancing haven't been strong or consistent enough. He feels more needs to be done.
Social distancing cannot be done in half measures. It has to be done by everybody. That means that, from my perspective, it's not okay to congregate in groups of less than 50.
In Alberta, Dr. Wendy Schlegel is more optimistic.
I think that we've seen over the last couple of days very aggressive measures taken by our government, and I feel quite reassured that most non-essential services have essentially been shut down.
This ICU physician believes the next 3 to 6 months will be incredibly challenging, but she says the public can help healthcare workers by staying calm.
I think a lot of the fears, again, I think can be potentially, people can be reassured by knowing that we are prepared to handle this pandemic, and panic will only impede our success in managing this.
Much of the health system's success will depend on what all Canadians do now. It's why some frontline workers have been taking their appeals to social media. This post by a nurse from Ontario has been shared more than 100,000 times. This is a matter of life and death, Ashley McIntosh Barton writes. Stop being selfish and think of everyone else who is already fighting for their lives.
This is what we trained for. This is why we chose this job.
Because whatever happens next, frontline workers are committed to help. They just need to know they're not in this fight alone. Heather Yerkes-West, Global News, Calgary.
Can COVID-19 be spread through surfaces? Still ahead, experts answer your questions. Here's a heartwarming note that should put a smile on your face. A Canadian kid got a rare response from the Prime Minister after writing him a letter about COVID-19. The 8-year-old said, "Please do your best. I don't want it to get to any of my grandparents." The Prime Minister responded with, "We're working super hard to slow down the spread and keep you, your grandparents, and all Canadians safe." Many of you also have concerns about the virus and have been reaching out to us. Our Jeff Semple went to the experts to get some answers. So Jeff, what's the latest on how long it can live on surfaces?
Well, Robin, health experts say that COVID-19 isn't airborne, but is instead spread through droplets that are created when someone coughs or sneezes and are often then spread on different surfaces. And that's prompting a lot of viewers to ask this.
Hi, my name is Lil Ronalds and I'm calling from Vancouver, British Columbia. And my question is, how long does the COVID-19 virus last on different types of surfaces?
And on different surfaces, it can last up to a couple of days.
A new report found that the virus can survive on cardboard for up to 24 hours and on a plastic surface for 2 to 3 days, meaning someone could cough on this bench and a couple of days later someone comes by, touches the bench, rubs their eye, and gets infected. The virus is less likely to survive on porous materials, such as clothing or pet fur.
Depends on the surface, the temperature, and the humidity.
Hi, my name is Sam. Me and my wife live in Vancouver, BC, and we are almost 20 weeks pregnant. And I was wondering if pregnant women are in fact more susceptible.
Fortunately, the little information we do have would suggest that pregnant women are not at an increased risk of getting this. And there's even doubt as to whether the virus can pass through the placenta and infect the fetus.
On the streets of Toronto these days, it's not uncommon to see people walking around wearing one of these, a surgical mask, or even the professional-grade N95 respirator.
My name is Barbara. I live in Keswick, Ontario. I was wondering, would masks help in this case?
Experts say there's no evidence to support wearing masks, and users are often more likely to touch their face.
So the only reason to wear a mask is if you are sick.
He says the best advice is to avoid gatherings, even in small numbers. But one viewer wrote to say that it seems there are a number of people choosing to ignore this self-isolation mandate. The St. Patrick's Day celebrations at Queen's University went ahead despite warnings from officials.
So I have a compromised immune system, but I'm still only 21, but I'm not even worried.
If you get this disease and you have the sniffles and a fever, it doesn't mean that the person you pass it to, who could be your parent or someone else you care about, won't have completely different symptoms in them. They could die because you passed it to them.
If you do the math, the result is grisly. Conservative estimates suggest that around a third of Canadians will catch COVID-19 and that 1% of those will die, meaning more than 100,000 Canadians are expected to be killed by the coronavirus this year. Robin?
Thanks for that information, Jeff. One question that remains unanswered, whether or not the Tokyo Olympics will be held this summer. The International Olympic Committee has said the Games could still begin on July 24th, despite the pandemic. But Canadian Hayley Wickenheiser believes that's the wrong move.
Nobody knows what's happening with this virus today, let alone tomorrow, let alone 4 months from now. And I just feel that the insistence that the Games are going to happen in July is doing a disservice.
The six-time Olympian posted this statement on Twitter, raising concerns for athletes and the general public. Wickenheiser is studying to become a doctor and has witnessed the efforts to contain the virus. Up next, that's the spirit, the proof that innovation can help slow the spread of COVID-19. It's being called liquid gold. Stores are selling out of hand sanitizer as quickly as they can stock it. So some distilleries are seizing the opportunity to help by brewing up some of their own. Ross Lord reports on the Canadian companies pumping out a new product.
Dipping into the disinfectant market was a reluctant move for Nova Scotia's Ironworks distillery.
There's a lack of hand sanitizers on the shelves, which is not something one would ever have expected, but it became apparent that we had a product that would do the job.
They're using the same main ingredient, alcohol, just increasing the concentration to 65%, the recommended level for killing germs.
We've had people breaking down the doors on Instagram and Facebook and other social media channels already because they want it and they can't find it anywhere.
No one knows how long this makeshift arrangement will last, but here at Ironworks, they hope it's short-term because that would mean the COVID crisis has eased. Like many Canadians, Lynn McKay has an emotional connection. A close family member has been stuck in the United States. Flight plans for coming home have been complicated. Ironworks is paying extra excise tax just to get hundreds of these bottles out the door.
We're supplying some of the old folks' homes if they ask for it. Some of the shops in town who might have a need because they can't find anything.
Other distilleries are also helping out. This one in Halifax plans to give away its hand sanitizer as it sorts out kinks in the supply chain that make it tough to find additional bottles.
This was kind of like a curveball that sort of just started, within two days. We're just like, okay, we need to kind of jump on this and see what we can do.
Others are still sorting out distribution, confident demand for their new products is unlikely to fade anytime soon, doing their small part to counter a big problem. Ross Lord, Global News, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight we leave you with a friendly reminder from BC.
If you want to go out, then you best think twice to stay home.
Stay Home is what these brothers call their self-isolation song. It's on YouTube, where you can find the lyrics and sing along from home. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Think of your grannies, think of your friends. Do it for the ones who can't defend. Just stay home. Read some good books, play a fun game. Stay home, stay home. Sing a song, then sing it again. Stay home, stay home.
Out. I don't think most New Yorkers need a lot of reminding of what this pandemic means and the dangers it brings. But we're all human beings. We're social. We're used to being close together, especially in this city. I know the NYPD and others will do a great job of making sure we're reminded to do the smart thing and the healthy thing and the safe thing. Okay, let me now talk to you about the overall situation. And this is the part of each briefing that I really hate to give because it's just astounding and it gets worse each time. But my job is to tell you the truth, and my job is to tell you the facts that you need to know. So here we go. As of 10 a.m. today, we can confirm in New York City 5,151 cases confirmed of coronavirus. And to give you perspective, that is now about 1/3 of all the coronavirus cases in the United States of America. It is about 2/3 of the cases in the state of New York. I hate to say this, but it's true. We are now the epicenter of this crisis right here in the nation's largest city. And we have so much we have to do. The city, we are doing everything that we possibly can. People are giving us ideas every day. We're running with those ideas. We're trying to create new things to help people. Our public servants are doing an amazing job. A lot of people are coming forward from the private sector offering help, from the philanthropic sector. There's so many people offering help, from individuals like those amazing medical professionals who've come forward, over 2,000. Those retirees who have volunteered to come back to help. Business people, big and small, offering to give anything they have to help this city. So many amazing, positive stories. And that reminds me just how good New Yorkers are and how much we're going to really find a way to get through this together. So the city government's doing everything it knows how. New Yorkers, businesses, nonprofit organizations, community groups, houses of worship, everyone's chipping in. State of New York doing the right thing, the right policy to protect us all, and taking a lot of the other right moves to be careful to make sure we all get through this. Everything makes sense until you get to the federal government. And I still can't understand it. Every day that I talk to you, I cannot understand what's going on here. There was another big press conference by the president and his key officials. They were talking about what is undoubtedly one of the biggest crises in this country in generations, one of the biggest threats to our national security in generations. And yet, essentially today, the president offered no new evidence of action. I don't understand why he won't do the single simplest thing that would help us and help this whole country: mobilize our armed forces. We need their ability, their logistical ability, their operational ability, their extraordinary personnel, including their extraordinary medical personnel. We need them here. We need them now. It's as simple as that. And the order still has not been given. The same with the Defense Production Act. We have been waiting and waiting. The president said today he would utilize it, but there's no specific evidence of that confirming to us any specific supplies or equipment being built, manufactured, distributed. We have nothing yet to tell us when we're going to get help, and we need it. I continue to appeal to our congressional delegation, which has been very supportive. I'm reaching out to cabinet secretaries. I'm reaching out to the vice president, anyone who will listen. But we need the president's full authority utilized under the Defense Production Act so that it will actually turn into thousands of ventilators, millions of surgical masks, all the things that New York needs. And by the way, I've warned people, in 2 or 3 weeks, at this rate, we're going to run out. But that's the beginning of the crisis. Later in April, into May, it gets worse. So we need the federal government to act. Senator Schumer, to his credit, is playing an extraordinary role. He has offered this Marshall Plan for hospitals. That's exactly what we need to give our healthcare community what they need, the supplies, the equipment, everything they need. But listen, it also, to his great credit, recognizes that states and localities are right now bearing massive new expenses and are stressed in huge ways. And we need the financial relief, too, so we can help our people. And our people need money back in their pockets, and the federal government can do that. So again, thank you to Senator Schumer for all you are doing. I want to give a number of updates about actions quickly that the city is taking, and then I'll turn to our police commissioner and then our schools chancellor. Let me just say, I mentioned earlier the sheer number of cases. Again, 5,151, an astounding number. 29 people in this city have passed away because of coronavirus. We've lost 29 New Yorkers, and that number is sure to keep growing very, very sadly. In terms of the boroughs, we have 1,406 cases. This again as of 10 a.m. this morning. 1,406 cases in Queens, 1,518 cases in Brooklyn, 1,314 cases in Manhattan, 667 cases in the Bronx, and 242 cases in Staten Island. Let me tell you about some of the things we're going to do, and the chancellor will go into more detail on the question of our enrichment centers. These are the new centers. We've never had them before. This is a brand new thing. And I want to thank everyone at Department of Education, everyone, our educators, our staff, our senior leadership, everyone. These folks have been working nonstop to get this ready. And these are the enrichment centers to provide education and to give a safe place to the kids of our absolutely essential workers, our healthcare workers, our first responders, our transit workers. We know we need all of those workers at the front where they're needed most, and they need to have their kids someplace safe. So they will open up on Monday morning. There'll be 93 to begin, but we could well be adding more. 76 of those will be K-12 education centers. 17 will be early childhood grades only. And these sites can handle well over 50,000 students. It's not going to be anywhere near that number to begin, but it could grow much more as we go along, and we want to be ready for anything. The first group, of course, again, is healthcare workers, first responders, transit workers. I identified them before. All of them will be able to, once confirmed, of course, will be able to have their kids go to these schools and centers during the school day. For the Department of Education staff who will be working at the centers and the food distribution locations, I'll be talking about those in a moment. Of course, their children as well will have that opportunity. For the frontline investigators and child protective workers in the Administration for Children's Services who protect kids against child abuse, the same. For Department of Corrections essential staff, the same. For Department of Homeless Services and Human Resources Administration, shelter staff and key contracted staff, the same, and for sanitation essential staff. And that obviously means, in a case of corrections and sanitation, our frontline workers as well. So we will
That
be
was New
getting
York
all
City
the
Mayor
details
Bill
out
de Blasio
on the
updating
different
on the latest
categories
situation here in New York City. We will, of course, continue to monitor what he's saying and let you know if there are any major developments. Social distancing, self-isolation, quarantine, they are all meant to keep you and others safe during the COVID-19 pandemic, but that is not the case for victims of domestic violence. Katie Ray Jones is the CEO of the National Domestic Violence Hotline. She's joining me now from Austin, Texas. Katie, thank you for being here. How are COVID-19 safety measures impacting people who are in domestic violence situations? What are your advocates hearing?
Allison, thank you for having us on. This is an incredibly distressing time for survivors of domestic violence. We know that on a typical day, 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. So we're greatly concerned about one's ability to even seek help in a situation where their perpetrator may be sitting right next to them.
Yeah.
We've been already hearing how COVID-19 is impacting survivors, such as their abuser has threatened to kick them out of the house during this time in order for them to be exposed to the virus. We've had stories of women who've been asked to wash their hands at such a frequency their hands are raw and bleeding, lack of access to hand sanitizer or soap in the home, and then people being told by their partners that they can't go to work and knowing that that financial piece is so essential for them to maintain their independence.
Oh, it's just awful. I can only imagine you've had more calls to the hotline?
We've been seeing an increased number of survivors sharing with us of how COVID-19 is impacting their life.
Let's dive straight in with our main story tonight, which concerns the subject that has dominated the news all week.
Global hot zones, the coronavirus spreading.
Fears grow of a global pandemic.
A huge spike in cases in Italy. Hundreds of cases in South Korea. New cases reported in Europe.
The CDC warned Americans to be prepared here at home, that it's not a matter of if, but when.
Yes, the coronavirus. On Tuesday, the CDC said that its spreading here is not a question of if, but when, which is just not a comforting thing to hear about the spread of something deadly. It's only comforting if you're talking about whether Saoirse Ronan will win an Oscar or whether Henry Kissinger will ever die. Don't worry, it's not a question of if, but when. And the CDC were not wrong. There are now several dozen confirmed cases here in the United States, with the first death coming just yesterday. Meanwhile, the stock market has taken its biggest one-week dive since 2008, and many Americans have questions about how to stay safe.
Joy Johnson emailed us asking, can I get coronavirus from a package being delivered from China? That's a great question.
Talk about these masks. Do we get them or don't we? Some people are wondering if you can protect yourself from the virus by gargling with bleach. What? Or taking steroids. Can you get the coronavirus by eating Chinese food?
No! No, you can't! Of course you can't get the coronavirus from eating Chinese food. In fact, if you're eating at a Panda Express, you can't even get Chinese food by eating Chinese food. Although, I will say this, you are unlikely to get the coronavirus if you regularly gargle bleach, because you know what they say, being dead is already the best medicine. Look, it might be helpful to get the very basics down here straight away. What we're talking about is a sickness called COVID-19. Caused by a new strain of coronavirus. Symptoms include fever, cough, and shortness of breath, and preliminary estimates are that it has around a 2% mortality rate, with the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions most at risk. And I know some people don't seem to think that 2% is all that bad, as Chuck Todd told us in the weirdest possible way.
So last night, I surprised my teenager when I told him that only 2% of those that get this coronavirus die. He goes, oh, well, I thought it was much worse. And I understand if you just digest social media, you just digest the headlines, this feels more deadly than it is.
Okay, so first, on behalf of your teenager, Dad, get out of my room and stop telling me the news. But second, 2% of people is a lot when you're talking about those people dying. Think about it this way, 2% of people disappearing was literally the premise of The Leftovers. You know, the show whose pilot very much did not consist of Justin Theroux going, well, that was rough, but to be honest, could have been worse, and then the show ending. The fact is, a 2% mortality rate, if true, would be about 20 times higher than the seasonal flu. And while the good news is around 80% of those who get this virus have mild symptoms, the bad news is that means they are more likely to spread it without even realising. That is one of the things that makes this so dangerous and why, even though its mortality rate is much lower than that of SARS or MERS, this virus has already killed 3 times as many people. In fact, one expert has predicted that 40 to 70% of the world's population will be infected within the next year, which is incredibly upsetting because there's only one infectious disease that 2/3 of the world should be getting right now, and that's Adam Driver fever. Shatter my knees, you fuckable redwood. Snap off my toes, you big unwashed buffalo. So, if the stock market is tanking, and people are considering gargling bleach, we thought tonight might be a good time to talk about the coronavirus, how we got to this point, what's currently being done, and how this virus has exposed governmental vulnerabilities as it has spread around the world. And let's start with how all of this began. The first documented cases cropped up at the end of last year in Wuhan, China. And initially, the Chinese government wasn't just slow to respond. Officials tried to silence and punish medical professionals who tried to raise the alarm, which almost certainly helped the disease to spread. And when the Chinese leadership finally decided to act, it moved aggressively, putting nearly 50 million people on lockdown.
1 month after Wuhan sealed off its borders, its roads are empty and construction sites are abandoned. Residents had been permitted to leave their residential compounds once every 7 days, but this week, loudspeakers placed on street corners notified households of a change.
From now on, nobody can go out.
Holy shit! A talking box that tells you you can't leave your house feels pretty dystopian. To be honest, I much prefer our dystopia, where a talking box listens to all our conversations and then tells Jeff Bezos when I'll need underwear next. It's such a convenient way to give up everything. People on lockdown in China are in a very unpleasant situation, but they've been doing their best to try and amuse themselves, like this man who either improvised a cool mask or finally found a socially acceptable reason to indulge in a very specific fetish. Other citizens made makeshift hazmat suits out of inflatable Christmas tree and dinosaur costumes, while still others stuck indoors were reduced to creating their own entertainment, like playing snooker with chopsticks and cherry tomatoes. And look, I have to say, that is the most culinary resourcefulness that I've seen since Claire from Bon Appetit Test Kitchen made combos from scratch. I don't know why you do this to yourself, Claire. They sell them in stores. But despite the government effort at containment, over 2,700 people have now died in China. Among them, Dr. Li Wenliang, an early whistleblower silenced by officials who has since become a symbol for citizens' anger at their government's response. So that is how this all began. And the coronavirus has since spread to more than 60 other countries who've handled it with varying degrees of success. Vietnam, for instance, moved quickly and, among other things, produced this incredible public information video about how to limit its spread through proper hygiene. Yes, 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 yes. Vietnam made a song about washing your hands to prevent coronavirus infection, and it absolutely slaps. That's a genuine club banger right there. In fact, people like that song so much, it even became a TikTok dance challenge. The song's incredible. It makes all other songs about washing yourself look like trash. And I'm talking to you here, Ernie. Look, you've been on top of the pile for a long time, but you got complacent, didn't you? And while other artists were out there innovating, you kept singing the same old Ducky song. You lost the hunger, son. You fell asleep at the wheel and music moved on without you. But look, not all countries have responded quite as well. Japan famously botched its handling of the cruise ship Diamond Princess by quarantining more than 3,500 passengers and crew on the ship itself which had disastrous results.
More than 620 cases have been confirmed among the passengers and crew on the cruise ship, raising worries about how the virus was able to spread so rapidly among people who should have been isolated.
Oh, I'll tell you how it spread so rapidly. They were on a cruise ship. Under the best of circumstances, a cruise ship is a floating Petri dish. You might as well have held them in a Chuck E. Cheese ball pit. The spread was so bad that 7 passengers have since died, and the WHO's list of coronavirus cases by country actually had a separate line just for the Diamond Princess, which is terrifying, although again, in terms of cruises, still not the worst. If your options are the Diamond Princess or the actual Carnival cruise, where the toilets were so full of shit they were falling off the walls, I'm booking the SS Coronavirus 10 times out of 10. 10 out of 10. And in some countries, the response was handled so badly, you could watch the virus spread live on television. In Iran, a government spokesperson attempted to reassure people that the virus was under control, while the deputy health minister standing next to him started mopping away fever sweat like an Alabama preacher. That guy was later confirmed to have the coronavirus, although not before going on TV again to explain away his symptoms while coughing all over the fucking studio. And if that wasn't bad enough, which it is, it turns out the Iranian people now trust their government so little, they think he was staging the whole thing.
They say they're lying that they have corona. They want to, this is a propaganda.
They think he's not got it.
No. They say that he's lying, and in 3 days he's going to come out to say that, oh, you see, I'm recovered. It's not serious. Don't worry. The level of mistrust towards the Iranian politicians is so deep that they wouldn't believe anything that comes out of their mouth.
Right. Iranians won't believe anything that comes out of their politicians' mouths, even if that thing is the actual coronavirus. And that is a huge problem, because it is going to be hard for any government to give effective advice if people don't believe in them. You know, trust in institutions is critical when trying to contain a possible pandemic. And unfortunately, that brings us to the United States' response to this virus, and specifically to this guy. Because the White House's messaging has been all over the place this week. In fact, on Tuesday, the very same day that the CDC said that the spread of coronavirus in the United States was not a question of if but when, one of Trump's top advisors was on TV saying this.
We have contained this. I won't say airtight, but pretty close to airtight.
Well, which is it? Because airtight versus close to airtight is a pretty crucial distinction. It's the difference between having a working submarine and a cool metal tube to die in. And the dissonance there speaks to a real problem, because in a global health emergency, you want to hear from the many trained experts who we're lucky enough to have working in our nation's public health agencies. You do not want to hear from politicians. And yet, on Wednesday, the president had a surprise announcement.
President Trump, alongside his top health advisors, sought to calm a nervous nation, naming a new point person to lead the administration's response.
I'm going to be putting our Vice President, Mike Pence, in charge. He's got a certain talent for this.
Does he? Does he, though? Because I was under the impression the only things Pence had a certain talent for were avoiding off-leash women, sucking up to people who represent the antithesis of everything he claims to believe in, and miserably failing at pulling off a haircut known as the Judi Dench. But putting aside Pence's, to put it mildly, extremely mixed record as governor of Indiana on managing public health issues, even the announcement that he would be leading the task force was a debacle, because Alex Azar, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, was already supposed to be chairing that task force, and Trump didn't seem interested in clarifying their roles, or indeed really being there at all.
Wish him good luck. And who?
Secretary Azar, given the Pence move,
I
think,
if I could just clarify, I think you're not getting the point here of this. I'm still chairman of the task force.
You don't feel like you're being replaced.
Not in the least. When this was mentioned to me, I said I was delighted that I get to have the vice president helping in this way. Delighted. Absolutely.
Yeah, he just left. This was a press conference meant to calm the nation, and with the most basic question of who would be running things seemingly up in the air, he just fucked right off. And look, I know we're used to only seeing businessman Trump, but it is nice to occasionally get a glimpse of the absentee father in him too. And look, it is more than just a lack of leadership. It is also concerning that Trump's main focus when discussing this virus seems to be downplaying any potentially bad news. He started this week tweeting, "The coronavirus is very much under control." But there was no way to be sure of that, as he frankly should have known. Many of the test kits the CDC initially developed to detect the virus apparently didn't work as expected, meaning that as recently as Wednesday, the CDC and only 6 state labs were testing for the virus. Thankfully, that has since been fixed, and we're presumably going to find more cases now. But Trump seemed reluctant to admit that that will happen. In fact, you can watch that dynamic in real time as officials at the press conference say one thing, and he tries to massage it into something else.
We can expect to see more cases in the United States.
We do expect more cases.
When you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero, that's a pretty good job we've done.
Yeah, but it won't be close to zero, will it? Your experts just said cases will go up, and you said they will go down. You can't just ignore real numbers and make up ones that you like better. This is the problem with a president whose entire life has been a series of low-stakes lies. A man who has lied about, among other things, his net worth, his apprentice ratings, the number of floors in Trump Tower, the size of Electoral College victory, the attendance at his rallies, whether it rained at his inaugural, and even whether or not he was invited on this very boring and low-rated show, which he wasn't. He wasn't. It was a lie. But there is a difference between lying about something that means literally nothing and lying about the spread of a deadly disease. And that is not the only time that Trump has peddled false hope. If you've seen him speak on this virus at all lately, you may have seen him repeatedly reassure everyone that there is a chance the end of the outbreak is just around the corner.
There's a theory that in April, when it gets warm, historically, that has been able to kill the virus. You know, a lot of people think that goes away in April with the heat, as the heat comes in. You know, in April, supposedly, it dies with the hotter weather, and that's a beautiful date to look forward to.
Okay, so first, never call calendar dates beautiful. I don't know how he did it, but I'm pretty sure Trump just sexually harassed the month of April. But the second, again, the truth is much more complicated there, because yes, some viruses do recede in warmer months. And yes, history's worst flu pandemic in 1918 did ebb away over the summer. But it is worth knowing that come the fall, the virus returned, was far more severe, and ended up killing nearly 200,000 Americans in October alone. This is a bad time to have a president who cannot speak clearly, because there's already enough bad information flying around, and the president's favourite channel has been a particular offender here. Fox anchors and guests have repeatedly amplified false claims, from the idea that the virus was created in a Chinese bioweapons lab to the baseless internet rumour that it came from Chinese people eating bat soup, which one commentator used as an excuse to say how he really feels.
Bat soup may be delicious to certain people, but unfortunately, bats are the world's greatest reservoir for viruses. What are we going to do about China? What are we going to do about a totalitarian dictatorship where it's okay to sell live virus-infected bats in open-air marketplaces and then have business travel and tourist travel between that country and the civilized world?
Whoa! Whoa, whoa, whoa! That escalated quickly. He really moves from the vaguely dog-whistly, what are we going to do about China, all the way to it's not part of the civilized world at lightning speed. Truly, that man is the Usain Bolt of racism, a comparison I'm certain he absolutely hates. But look, it gets worse, because some people are even clearly trying to profit off the present panic, like televangelist Jim Baker, who has a cure that he'd love to sell you.
Would you recommend, as a doctor, people to have silver in their house for a pandemic?
You never want to be without silver.
You're saying that silver solution would be effective.
Well, let's say it hasn't been tested on this strain of the coronavirus, but it's been tested on other strains of the coronavirus and has been able to eliminate it within 12 hours. Totally eliminate it, kills it, and deactivates it.
Okay. That is ridiculous. Silver does not kill coronavirus. Silver kills werewolves, which means first, you need to get your coronavirus bitten by a microscopic werewolf. And where am I going to find one of those in this economy? Well, that's right, from our online store. For just $49.99, we will send you John Oliver's premium werewolf solution. It contains millions of microscopic werewolves ready to spread their bestial curse to your coronavirus, and then you can use the silver solution, which is based on the exact same amount of science. The truth is, while clinical trials are underway, there is no treatment for the coronavirus at the moment, and a vaccine could take between a year and 18 months to develop. And at this point, you may be wondering, how scared should you be? And the answer is probably a bit. A bit. Look, I don't want to be alarmist here, but I also don't want to minimise what we could be facing. It's really about trying to strike a sensible balance. Basically, if you're drinking bleach to protect yourself right now, you should probably calm the fuck down. If you are, say, licking subway poles because you're certain nothing can hurt you, maybe don't do that. You want to stay somewhere between those extremes. Don't be complacent, and don't be a fucking idiot. And look, as a practical matter, until experts advise that this threat is over, we should all be following some basic advice. First, don't be racist. That's just good general advice for now and for later. 2, don't hoard masks. While I understand that you might want to do that, you are potentially taking away those masks from the people who really need them, healthcare providers and those who are sick. 3, check the CDC website for future updates, because they could have additional guidance as this develops. And finally, and this is more important than it might sound, wash your hands regularly for at least 20 seconds. And I know that that last lesson is boring and easy to forget, but luckily, we now know that there is a way to ensure that it absolutely never leaves your head. Hit it. That song fucks! That fucks so hard!
Greetings, everybody out there in internet land, whatever day and time of day it may be for you. Welcome to SJU. I am Emma Fife, as I have always been, still wearing this green jumpsuit. I don't know how many days in a row you've seen it, because I didn't bring extra changes of clothes. Today we are going to be talking about surprise celebrity debuts in their youths. Celebrities who you may not have known were in certain films in their younger years, long before they were famous. But before we get into that, allow me to introduce my panel. We have got the one and only, the real E.G. in the house.
Oh, no. It's stuck.
Oh
my God, it's stuck.
It's stuck. Or it's the first time that you're hearing it, and sorry to Roxy for co-opting that.
Okay, it's okay. Maybe we'd call the other one Egg. And egg just be E.G.
That's terrible. Don't do that to Eric. Don't do that to Eric. Please don't do that to Eric.
Eggs, cool. Eggs are dope.
Yeah, I love eggs.
I like scrambled.
I just had an egg in my salad. I love eggs.
Yeah.
Put it on a burger.
Cool.
Yeah.
Put it on a pizza. You got cheesy blasters. What are we doing?
Go to parties at Jay Gatsby's
You need
house.
it for crepes?
In the West Egg.
Cookies?
West Egg. Next to E.G., we've got Ms. Roxy Stryer.
The egg eater herself.
Get away from me. Get away from me then. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's true.
You're not eggs, you're E.G.
Right, but Eric Goldman somewhere out there is feeling very threatened by Roxy.
Coming for you, egg.
And someone who's yet to weigh in on his opinion on eggs, Joe Starr.
I don't know what to do.
Just in general
Life,
right now.
you don't know what to do.
Life right now, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's a weird time for everybody.
How many times today have you guys, because I keep doing this, I just go,
You're just looking around.
I'm just like, I don't know what I'm looking for. I was just like, okay.
Yeah, so I
today.
appreciate every moment. And Emma, I feel you on the wardrobe situation. I have rolled up my sleeves. This is a new look. Arm hair is the new move.
I could roll down my sleeves. I can make it a more of like a long sleeve.
What's challenging though is like you are in a black long sleeve shirt. You are in a bright green
Yes.
jumpsuit. I mean, this could be like an
You do look like the exciting female character they added to Mario.
I work on a spaceship, but in like an anime.
It's a me, a 5.
It's a me, I'm a 5. Okay, well let's get into today's topic, which is celebrities who appeared in films before they were famous that you may not have known about. So I'm at a little bit of an advantage here because the main list that we are drawing from comes from the website ranker.com. And if any of you are Snapchat aficionados, you may have seen the series Rankworthy, for which I provide the voice. So today we're counting down the top 8 celebrities you may not have known appeared in films before they were famous.
It's like I'm there. It's like I'm there in the booth with you.
Really good.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna now take it as like the largest compliment that anybody ever thinks that I am you.
Oh, Roxy, I
really
appreciate
good,
that. I
yeah.
really enjoy your work on everything you do for all the VO stuff you do for Screen Junkies.
We should trade off lines sometimes and see if they notice
that it's different people
Yeah.
talking. Yeah, close your eyes and try to determine if it's Roxy or me.
Or me.
Yep, Joe also could possibly be Roxy or me.
What are we doing?
I don't.
Are you church and steepling it over there?
I don't know.
Always blue, always blue. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
All right.
Egg.
Yeah, this is me.
First up on the list, we have got Elijah Wood, who was in Back to the Future.
This I never remember. At all.
Yeah.
At all. Look, there's that
He's
sweet
so
little boy.
fresh. Look at his little hat, his little 2015 future hat. Joe, were you wearing that same hat in 2015?
Yes. No,
Is it a visor?
Unclear, because it's like a colander. It's got like holes in it.
Yes.
Oh my God, colander. That's what Grandma used to call collider because she couldn't say it.
That's just as precious as Elijah Wood wearing a colander.
I
on
loved
his head.
colander movie talk.
Yeah, that is something that if I saw that picture and you hadn't just told me who it was, I would not have known. Like,
yeah,
Really? Because I don't think he looks any different now.
I was gonna say,
really,
He's like a 40-year-old man and he still looks like
yeah,
that.
genuinely, he still looks just like
no.
that.
When you say it, I see it.
Right.
Okay.
See something, say something.
Yes.
Okay, but
Terrorism and Elijah Wood.
All right.
Absolutely. Those two
but when
things.
I look at his face, he looks like Topher Grace.
Okay, I see it.
I see a little Topher
Yeah, I
face.
see
I'll
it.
give you that.
Topher face. He looks like Topher face.
Topher face, my Topher face.
And who's the one behind him?
I was curious too. I was
No, but
wondering who the
that's
other
what I
kid
was thinking about the whole time.
Mark
It's like
Wahlberg.
It's all.
I mean,
all of these.
it could be. It's
Oh my
Wahlberg.
God.
It's Wahlberg, Mark.
No, whoever this kid is, he has auditioned for the same thing Elijah Wood auditioned for every role after and had lost them all to Elijah Wood. Like this kid, now an adult, hates Elijah Wood so much. He auditioned for Frodo, lost it. He auditioned for North, lost it.
I want his name. Maybe he's like George.
Just
name him, Roxy.
George Glass.
The power is yours.
Yeah.
George Glass hates Elijah Wood so much.
Yeah, but I always wondered about those people who there are people who come in young and keep being actors, and there's people who come in young and go, you know what?
I'm out.
I'm going to be a marine biologist.
Yeah.
And I'm always, I always like those people for some
You
reason.
like the other people, the
Yeah.
marine biologists?
Yeah, because
Or
they're
the
doing
people
something.
that take a big break, you know what I mean? Like a Jodie Foster or something who was a child actor and then like took a break and went to college and then came back into acting.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying about doing things, but like, I wanted Shirley Temple to be like performing. I mean, she wasn't in a movie for the last 40 years of her life or something, and that's her prerogative. Totally,
such a great activist, though. She did a lot of really good work.
100%, and I'm not trying to take that away, but Drew Barrymore, she's one of my favorite performers. She's been doing the damn thing for a really long time. I like to see how people evolve and change.
Since she was an egg.
If you will.
This guy. No, but you know what? I have gotten out of peaking early by just never peaking.
Yeah, I feel that.
You know what I mean? I just suck for life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to look back and be like, Uncle Rico, I could throw the football over those mountains. I never had any glory days. They all sucked.
I think you're amazing.
Oh, thanks.
I mean it.
All right, well, since Roxy said that she was certain that she could tell it was Elijah Wood because I said that it was him, we're going to take a slightly different approach. And I'm just going to say the film title, and we'll bring up the image, and then you can guess who it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. The next title on our list is A Nightmare on Elm Street. And who is the actor who was in that film? Wait for it. Here it comes. Jonathan's shaking his head.
Well, I don't know if Jonathan knows which one to.
Okay. Maybe my.
Label it by actor. Sorry.
Oh, you labeled it by actor. Gosh darn it!
I'll close my ears.
That's all right, Ryan. Okay,
ready.
Jonathan got it. He got it.
Okay.
Okay, here it goes.
Okay.
Roxy, who is it?
Roxy, who is that?
Who is it?
Johnny Depp?
Yeah.
Wow. One of the.
Free scarves.
Yeah, and an iconic death scene, too, in A Nightmare on Elm Street. This was his film debut.
I like his eyebrows better here.
Yeah, his brows are really on fleek, as the kids say.
I like a good sexy brow.
Yeah.
Like the full brow.
It was the 80s. A full brow was kind of in, I feel like.
Yeah, it seems like it went out in the late 80s and then came back in the 90s with a vengeance. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then it's lasted
And then
until
late
tonight,
90s, the brows just went further and further and further away.
Why did nobody tell me when I was young to stop over plucking? You guys really screwed me.
My mom did tell me. My mom basically was like, don't touch your eyebrows. And I thank her for it.
They're
to
really
this very
good.
day.
You got good brows. I overplucked. That pencil comes in handy.
Yeah, very nice eyebrows.
They're drawn on.
She shakes her head like an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I think, maybe this is an apocryphal story, maybe it's not, but I heard that Johnny Depp actually just palled around with a friend who went to that who went to the audition.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard this too.
Yeah, and that he was just there, just sort of saying that, would you like the audition too? I'll give it a go. And then he just did the Jumanji smolder,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they were like, Jesus, this kid.
Can you guys picture Johnny Depp, like little Johnny Depp having friends? Like I just picture him as like a pirate as a kid, and like friends come up and be like, "Arr."
See, I picture.
I feel like he had one or two really good friends who just got him, but
they saw him.
He was but he was definitely a weird kid.
My default Johnny Depp, no matter the age, is always Crybaby. And so when I picture Johnny Depp, I just picture this like tiny greaser. Yeah. Like same hair. Same white undershirt, but
that's
just
your default?
5. Yeah, I don't know why.
What's your guys' default?
Young Johnny Depp.
When I was a little baby kid, I was introduced to 21 Jump Street. So I always hear the theme song and I see him.
Yeah.
He's 21 Jump Street.
My default young Johnny Depp is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I love the Nightmare series. And again, like his death in this movie is crazy. He's also Nancy, the main character's boyfriend, and Nancy's such a great character that I remember him from this film. Yeah. All right, moving on. Well, I would say this and a dash of Edward Scissorhands. I gotta give a little shout out to that.
And I'll give a little shout out to Crybaby as well. I saw Crybaby in the movie theater. I did not understand the 50s, nor greaser culture, nor a deconstruction thereof. I did not understand. It's like watching somebody do a parody of something you're not familiar with at all.
Yeah.
So it was the weirdest damn movie I ever saw. Like it was so strange.
All right. The next title on our list is Fast Times at Ridgemount High. And who do we have as the actor there?
Oh, I read this one. Otherwise, I wouldn't know. Somebody else guess. You guys know?
Andy Samberg on the left.
No. Do you know what Fast Times at Ridgemount High came out? Is Andy Samberg a vampire?
He might be. You don't know.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it was when I was watching Fast Times at Ridgemount High for the first time when I was in college. I I first noticed him in there's a scene where they're at a sporting event. I think it's football, and he's sitting in the bleachers, and I was like,
was that
Nick Cage? Yep.
What I like about young Nick Cage stuff was, I think a lot of actors take some time to get to their weird period, and out the gate, Nick Cage was just I feel like at some point we were like, oh, not the bees, that's Nick Cage, but out the gate, he was so weird. It wasn't the vampire movie where he just plays the hitchhiker, and it's one scene, and then the name escapes me, but he's just crazy, out the gate. He's nuts.
I know the movie you're talking about.
Doesn't he eat a roach in there?
I think so, probably.
Yeah, I think he actually ate a roach.
But even in Fast Times, it's not like you just see the person and they're not their full avatar that they're going to become yet.
Right.
Nick Cage, I think, was just born being hey, and I love him for it.
Yeah.
Yep, Nick Cage and Keanu Reeves, I feel are both that exact way, where they just have steadily stayed themselves for many, many years.
Yes, yes, very opposite ends of the spectrum of what that means, but absolutely, absolutely.
Yep. All right, moving on to our next film, and this one has 2 actors in it. We are talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the film, not the TV series.
This one I had not.
Who do we have? Who do we have here? All right.
The Karate Kid.
The Karate Kid.
Yeah, we have the Karate
the next Karate Kid.
The Karate Kid and Good Will Hunting's bum ass friend who sucks.
It's funny, actually, after having seen The Way Back, it's funny to look at Affleck like
I
this.
know.
Yeah, oh, dude, that's the headcanon now. That was him, and when he was an early high school star.
Yeah,
in the Buffy town, and then he started doing drugs and has to have the team
It
raise
wasn't
that.
drugs as much as alcohol, which is a drug, I guess.
It
so
is,
fine.
Yeah.
Swank, I forgot
Fine.
completely in this.
I actually remember Hilary Swank in it because she has more interactions with Christy Swanson.
Yeah.
She's one of her friends.
I think because for me, even if she's the lead, Hilary Swank is an actress where I'm always pleasantly surprised to see Hilary Swank.
Sure.
Where I go, oh hey, Hilary Swank's in this, and so I don't know why.
I feel the same way about her, actually. But at the same time, I don't know that I could name 5 Hilary Swank movies right now.
I probably can't either.
Yeah.
$1 Million Baby, Next Karate Kid.
Yep.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Did you say Karate Kid already? I was just joking.
Now I remember Affleck for me isn't Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's the Karate Kid. Ben Affleck for me is Voyage of the Mimi. Did you guys watch that when you were in school?
So no.
Okay, Voyage of the Mimi. He actually talked. Did you see that Kimmel interview that he just did? So
can you say the name of it?
Voyage of the Mimi. So Affleck. So he just did this Kimmel interview where if you want to look for it, look it up. Just type in Ben Affleck, Adam Driver, because at the end of it he tells this really nice story about Adam Driver. But the first half is talking about early stories with Matt Damon and them growing up as actors in Boston together because they've known each other since they were eggs, and he talks about how he got this educational show, and Matt Damon was furious, he was very jealous and real pissy about it. And so after he got that, he showed up to audition for a school play, and Matt Damon, according to him, Matt Damon sauntered up to him and was like, "This is the theater, not TV like you're used to."
Oh, wow.
So that's a story he told on Kimmel. But Voyage of the Mimi was this show we watched in science class where it was about marine biology, and you had it was it was 4% story and then 96% science facts. But Ben Affleck, as a 10-year-old boy, was the kid that would
funny
that lived on the Mimi and learned about dolphins.
Yeah, I feel I have no awareness of Ben Affleck pre Good Will Hunting.
Me neither.
After the fact, I noticed that he was in stuff before that. But as far as my introduction to him, it was definitely Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, no,
and it was peripherally Good Will Hunting because I think I was too young to watch watch Good Will Hunting when it came out.
No, mine was days that our science teacher was too hungover to teach. We would we'd watch Voyage of the Mimi.
Yeah, well, Voyage of the Mimi sounds like trying to explain a meme to your grandma.
A Voyage of the Meme.
You know what I mean?
Graph.
It's like, oh
This
god,
is the voyage.
this is the voyage that it takes all through the internet, and it's not a meme. It's a meme.
Oh my God. Grammy calls Instagram stories quickies, and she called me and said, Sky's doing a quickie with Julia's boyfriend on the roof. I was like,
okay, Grammy.
I was like, don't tell anybody else that, Grammy.
I love her so much.
She's not doing a quickie with her best friend's boyfriend.
Oh boy.
What's,
the Mimi.
I know that's another educator. Like I know Louis Gossett Jr. from an educational thing called Straight Up, where he plays a weird magical character that has a fate elevator that he rides people on so they can see what happens if they do drugs or smoke cigarettes.
Oh, dare.
Oh wow,
Which you can find on YouTube. Very well worth your time.
I know him from Iron Eagle.
This I went straight up Iron Eagle. Like I just got flipped. There's two kinds of people. Like you either went Iron Eagle or just not straight up ever at all. I went to the tangential universe of Say No to Drugs, Louis Gossett.
All right, the next title on our list is Remember the Titans. We're looking at two actors once again. Here they are. Oh,
look at Baby Goose.
I remember this very well.
That's baby Goose.
I know.
By the way, as rated as this movie is, it is an underrated movie.
I love Remember the
rated
Titans.
As it is, it is one of the greats.
Yep.
Ryan Gosling for sure got hotter with age. Good
Yeah,
for
he
him.
has aged well.
Not that he's not cute here, but I'm just saying, like, that he became like this Hollywood heartthrob. Like, I don't know that seeing this movie, we thought that was going to be the case.
Right.
Yeah, you're like, oh, he's the cute little blonde boy.
He's like a little. He's somewhere between Owen and Luke Wilson in this picture.
Yeah. Who's the guy that played Sunshine? Do you guys remember?
Oh yeah.
Sunshine?
The pretty one with the curly blonde hair.
That guy was like what you thought was going to be the Ryan guy.
That guy's going to be in the
for sure.
Yeah. I always wonder about those. Have you ever seen a movie where it's like Sharon Stone is in the movie, but she's looking at some woman that's so hot that Sharon Stone feels inferior, and then that woman does not have a career, but Sharon Stone does? And you're like, where do they get those people?
I don't know.
What I mean? Like, you're so hot, you make Sharon Stone feel inferior.
I was going to say, where do you get people that are hotter than Sharon Stone?
Well, to be fair, Sharon Stone has been used like that in multiple movies.
That's very true.
I know he's canceled, but like she's in like a Woody Allen movie.
Yeah.
She's in way before Total Recall and stuff.
Totally.
Actually, when she got Basic Instinct, she was like 35.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, which is not old or anything,
No,
but it
not at
seems like
all.
a debut movie for her.
That's
but she'd
true.
already had a career being, Steven Seagal's wife in Above the Law, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just so weird.
About Sharon Stone and Steven Seagal.
Well, Steven Seagal is isn't he? He's bankrupt over Bitcoin.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's being sued for misrepresenting.
Just imagine him explaining to Sharon Stone that he's broke. It's like, hey, I got mixed up in some Bitcoin and stuff.
I can't send you
That's a movie.
Yeah, we can't pay the mortgage, baby. We gotta rob banks.
And are you guys fans of Hayden in this movie or in general? What she was able to do?
I remember thinking she was adorable in this movie.
Excellent.
And it was more of a when Heroes started airing, I was like, oh, dang, I didn't even realize that's a little girl from Remember the Titans.
Yeah. Do you guys watch The Walking Dead still, or am I the only human being?
I think you're the only one that's still there.
Mark my words, there is a little girl on that show who is going to be a star.
That's cool.
Hayden style, Barrymore style. She's going to be.
There's
I don't know her name.
The little girl. We watched the RuPaul show on Netflix, AJ and the Queen.
Oh yeah.
And like, it's not good.
No, it's fine.
But it's fine, and it's very
watchable.
sweet. It's very positive. It's very like, here's what the world could be. But
the show
little girl on it.
it got canceled. She's incredible. She's the same. This little girl, Izzy. I can't remember her. I think it's just G.
Yeah, I think it's just Izzy G.
But same with this one, where you're just like, you're going to be huge in a couple years.
She's really
calling the shot on that girl.
She's real good.
And sometimes you just kind of know, and it isn't about any sort of appeal at all. It's just something that happens where you're just like, I could see it. Like I remember basically, long story boring, an NBA player started dating somebody from a Nick show because they're 19, and people who are on Nick or Disney shows are like 19 too. So they started dating, but it was still kind of weird because you think of NBA people as grown-ups and those people as kids. But Ariana Grande was like her best friend on the show, this person who was dating this NBA player.
Oh, yeah.
And she was just like, she had this weird little voice. She was like, yeah, I sound like this. And she was like this weird little pretty girl who had a weird voice. It was like Aquafina before Aquafina type style. And I was like, she's going to do it. And she did it. You know what I mean?
She stays doing it.
Yeah.
She's huge.
That ponytail is doing extra work.
Sure is. All right, moving on to our next movie, which is A River Runs Through It.
Ooh.
Yes. And who is...
I think about this movie every day.
God,
he has also not aged.
Face.
He has not changed
does
at
look
all.
The exact same. That's weird to say because I can't say he does not look the exact same when like now he's like a hot man.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
he looks like he is totally aged.
I think what it is,
his facial expressions.
I think his facial expressions are identical. I think what it is, and you see this with young actors a lot, and it's sort of a toss-up of if they're sort of more mature-looking features, because that's like there's a lot going on in that expression. That is the expression of someone that has lived a life.
Yeah,
and I think
it's not happy.
Old kids. Talking about old kids.
I'm talking about old kids, and I feel like that was some of the appeal of Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a child actor was he was kind of an old kid.
Yeah.
Like a Dakota Fanning or something.
But you guys,
old kid.
The most important part of this picture, obviously, that has not been acknowledged is the mushroom cut, which is a cut that I was just the most massive fan of. Bring back the mushroom cut.
It was, the mushroom cut really was all the rage.
Greg Kelly, my very first kiss in first grade, had a mushroom cut.
Greg.
I'm telling you, the mushroom cut, that was the move at the time. So.
And what are your feelings on the mushroom cut?
Yeah, I know at my school the mushroom cut boys were just cleaning up. That's been my experience.
It was like it was the go-to hairstyle of elementary school heartthrobs everywhere.
Yeah, well, everybody with a bowl could be a barber for a while.
But how did you feel about the mushroom cut plus the rat tail?
No, I was not a fan. No.
Oh yeah, no, that's a rough combo.
Yeah,
that's a very Kentucky combo.
I mean, we had it a little bit even in Connecticut, so it crossed state lines.
Did you ever have anybody put the beads on the bottom of the rat tail?
Oh, yep. Lot of white boys.
Yeah, a lot of beads.
With craft beads on their rat tails.
Oh yeah.
What a time! What a time! All right, up next we have got Rudy, and coming down the pipeline, the actor in the film Rudy. Oh, look at him there in his Letterman jacket.
If this was not on the page and I hadn't just looked at it, there is 100% zero shot, so 0% shot that I would have guessed.
Same, actually. Yeah.
This does not even look like him.
No. Let's just keep not saying who it is, too.
It's Vince Vaughn, for those keeping up at home. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I'm actually positive that this was in a rank-worthy script that I did for Ranker, and I think myself and Dave, who was engineering for me, both went, he was in Really? He was in Rudy?
What's the name of the main dude from The Wire in real life? Dominic...
Toretto.
No. Did you guys not watch The Wire?
No.
Well, no,
what is that actor's name?
Ryan, what is the name? Is Jonathan yelling at us?
The name
Ryan's
of
looking
the
it up.
lead guy in The Wire, whatever his name is, and I can't think of right now, that looked like him, which means nothing to you guys who don't know.
But to the many fans of The Wire, however, who are watching at home.
Didn't The Wire have many leads, too?
It did, but it had
like Omar and then this guy.
Dominic West. I said Dominic.
Yeah, Dominic.
Dominic West. I'll show you guys.
Toretto.
But what you call it? I always felt like Swingers. It's so funny that I definitely saw Rudy, but I just erased Jon Favreau's part and erased Vince Vaughn's part from this movie. Yeah. And it was just I saw them in Swingers, and that's the first time I saw them, and that's when they debuted, and they're great. Sure. You know what I mean? It's so weird how like you have to get going before. I think that's what's interesting about all these people is like, what did they do before the thing that you recognize them in?
Yeah.
Because there's all this work that has to be done before they get a Good Will Hunting or whatever you first recognize them as.
Well, it's like, what's her name? Oh, God, I just completely blanked. She's playing the queen in the new season of The Crown.
Olivia Colman?
Thank you, Olivia Colman.
Dominic West.
Yes. Connecting Olivia Colman to the funny lady in Hot Fuzz.
Oh, yeah.
Will never kind of not blow my mind, like a little bit.
Right.
Just because now you've seen so much of her range. Because for me, she was always like, remember that lady in Hot Fuzz who's really funny and talks about gobbling cock and like this and that.
Yeah.
You're
Is
like,
that
oh, now she's
gobbling
like-
cock or goblin cock?
It's like that.
Goblin.
Like,
Goblin.
She talks about. No. That's a very different podcast that I should host. Honestly,
Goblin cock.
The bell.
Honestly, look, you get to talk about anime.
I do. I do get to talk about anime sex on my podcast. Look for Joe's new podcast, which is about D&D sex.
You're welcome. I gave you the idea. Don't I get any goblin cock credit?
Yeah.
Yep.
Ryan's furiously dinging the bell.
Just trying to figure out how to navigate this.
Well, I guess this is a good transition from goblin cock into other small fantasy creatures.
Where are you going?
The final film on our list is Leprechaun.
Oh gosh.
Goblin.
Let's see what actor was in this as a small
This one I genuinely did not remember.
baby. Yeah.
Who is it, Rox?
I would recognize her with my eyes closed. It's my girl Jennifer Aniston, yo.
Let me ask you this, Friends Aficionado. Does this count as a Rachel?
Oh,
Like,
that
does
hairstyle?
any haircut she's ever had a Rachel, or was it a specific?
I do feel like based off of this that she is she's got some kind of a weave going on there. I don't know if you can count it as a Rachel if you've got that kind of a. This looks like actually just a straight up wig on top.
Oh wow! Like maybe she had a mushroom cut and they put a wig on her.
Yeah.
The part on the hairline there is very telling. Very telling.
Yeah. Now that I'm looking at it, that is a little bit of a Spirit Halloween store, like.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I was going to ask. So this came out in the '90s, the Leprechaun jazz.
Well, this must be in the 80s.
Yeah.
Because
Late 80s,
like 88,
Yeah.
80, like 88, something like that.
No, I would say earlier than that because if Friends is 94, then think about how much older she is in Friends. How old does she look to you guys here?
I mean, she's like 19 in this, maybe.
Yeah, Leprechaun came out. Oh no, 93.
No way.
Wow.
Wait,
I told you, because
93? You're telling me that the year after this came out, she was shooting Friends.
Yeah.
She looks like she's 12.
She really does.
She looks
look
extremely
tiny in this,
young.
yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think that's
Delighted.
styling, and we're talking about the haircut. Like to me, in the '90s, there was two haircuts: the Rachel and the T-Boz. People don't remember T-Boz from TLC, but that haircut was so damn popular. It's like they got a little bob with a little bang action, and then two strips of hair that go down like
strips
this.
were amazing.
The T-Boz strips.
Wait, I need to know when they shot this. It might have come out then, but there's just no way, right? I mean, she looks like a child.
Right, and she's in her 20s.
Well, maybe Leprechaun ran into some production hiccups. That took a while.
Yeah,
They started in '87 and didn't finish.
It was like Boyhood, but with a leprechaun.
Now I'm like going down a weird rabbit hole. I'm like, I wonder, did Leprechaun run into any production delays?
Focus, Emma.
Shooting occurred. I got it. Shooting occurred from the 28th of October 1991 through the 3rd of December 1991.
Okay.
Okay, so
But still, she was 22.
Yeah.
She legitimately looks 14.
She just hit,
That's what I would have guessed. I don't know.
somewhere between this and
16 at the
Friends.
most?
Yeah, somewhere between this and Friends, she hit puberty.
I would guess somebody that was 20
and it
playing
worked out.
14.
It
It worked out for her.
Pretty lady Jennifer Aniston. I don't know if you guys have heard that.
Yeah. I'm a fan. I like Jennifer Aniston.
I don't know how popular that opinion is, but
I would say the women on that show trumped the men looks wise by a lot. Just
like life. What are you?
Friends is a,
saying. I think that
No, you're right.
Lisa Kudrow, Courtney Cox, and Jennifer Aniston are all like stunning.
Friends is a great microcosm for a couple things. One, YouTube channels.
Yep.
Because same. Ed and I are like YouTube. Ed and I are like YouTube fives.
You guys are handsome.
It's just a sad situation. But no, but like.
But
again,
then also when you're like in elementary school and every girl is 4 feet taller than you and beautiful, and like you're still like a little goblin-y. It's like.
We keep coming back back to goblins.
You guys want to play Pogs?
Well, no, I mean, I think that's why we're such jerks at that age, because we crawl out of sewer grates and from under bridges to try to talk to 8-foot-tall Amazon women, and it sets up this weird imbalance.
Some of us never get over it, and we just stay in front of a Blu-ray wall.
And just yell, "Why is Captain Marvel?" All right, oh God, oh God. Maybe you should. Maybe if you held more hands in elementary school, you wouldn't care so much about what Captain Marvel is doing.
Like a shot at the East Coast people, though.
Why is
Captain Marvel? Why is Captain Marvel a lady?
Hey!
When I was a kid,
I heard you.
I just feel like this young lady with the shotgun who has no firearm training shouldn't be able to defeat a leprechaun who's magic.
More this, go woke, go broke. That's what I say.
Reverse misogyny.
I can explain it in 2 words. Goblin cock.
Hey! And on that note, we want to thank you all so much for supporting the show. Listen, thank you for allowing us to gather around a table and utter the phrases goblin and cock next to one another in succession many times and get paid for it. We're
Ryan's
so
like, please keep saying it.
To all of you out there. Please like, subscribe, share this video. This is a way for us all to come together and still have some semblance of human interaction in these weird times in which we are currently living.
I haven't seen anyone but the 3 of you and Ryan in 17 years.
And the goblin. He's just in his little corner doing this. Joe doesn't even have a co-host on this podcast.
No. Just you and a spreadsheet.
All right. Before we go, we're going to do one quick fan question. Just off the top of your head, this comes from @Kelstar22. Kelstar asks, what is your favorite movie title? What's your favorite movie title? Which ones do you think are extremely creative? And are there any you think make no sense? Ed Greer.
I mean, honestly, Die Hard and Pulp Fiction were the ones that just popped into my head.
Yeah.
Those two, they describe exactly what
movie titles.
Right. They describe whenever somebody goes, such and such and such, and then the cowardice of John Ford or whatever. These long ass titles. I'm just like, no. If your grandma can't say it, it ain't a movie title.
Yeah.
Period.
That's fair.
I do think that's what hurt Birds of Prey.
I was going to bring that up.
I think that should have been called Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey.
Instead of Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, which I love.
I'm all for shooting your
super clever
shot.
title, but
yeah. Like you can't have a 4-quadrant superhero movie and then have based on the novel Push by Sapphire at the end of it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's too much. There's just too much.
Yep.
That one got hurt because of it. Edge of Tomorrow is one that makes no sense to me.
No sense.
When your source material is called All You Need. Yeah, like Live, Die, Repeat. But the source material is called All You Need Is Kill, which
is great.
Is a dope name.
It's a dope name.
Yeah, that sounds that sounds like a really fun screamo song from like 2004. Yeah. They used to open for Taking Back Sunday.
Okay, Roxy, do you have a thought?
My favorites, I guess I love old school ones. Gone with the Wind, I think is a beautiful title. Wizard of Oz, things like that. Clockwork Orange, I like.
All based on books.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out books have good titles, you guys.
Yeah, so
often.
You just have to stick with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess
I'll do 2 that are similar but different premises. One is
premies.
Premies.
Let me hit you with the premi.
Let me hit you with a premi.
Just not a quickie.
One is
a goblin quickie.
One is a great title that very clearly explains the premi, which is A Quiet Place. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Bird Box. What the F?
Yeah. That's very fair.
I don't get that one. Oh, I have a runner-up for the best title of all time. It's not even a runner-up. It's the best title of all time. It's Star Wars. Star Wars is the best title of all time.
You just hook them in.
It's just like but again, it's so funny that it's just like everything else in Star Wars. I'll give you a little bit, and then you extrapolate, do all the work, and get disappointed because it doesn't mean what you think it means. You know what I'm saying? Star Wars, Clone Wars.
It is kind of interesting that one is like Star Wars versus Star Trek. Like one's a trek and one war.
A trek does sound rough, where it's like
Star Wars is about war, and Trek is like, oh, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna go.
Yeah, something that is sort of a negative title. Like it's like Star Family Station Wagon Trip to the Grand Canyon, where your dad's gonna get mad a lot. Like that's.
I love Star Trek.
That's not a good
Don't get
sell.
me wrong, but like I don't know about that. If you're gonna pick between titles Star Wars or Star Trek,
well, it's one step away from like Star Schlep.
I'd rather war.
Star Quest, Star Journey,
Star Quest
Mission
is a
to the
great
Stars,
name.
Star Fun, Star Explorer,
Fantasy Star Online,
Star Search. That was
Volume
a show.
2.
Star Search.
Really?
Oh my God!
Star
What they
Search.
called it Star Search before Star
Search was done. Oh my God.
That would have been a great name for Star Trek.
Star Trek is Star Search.
Well, there you go, Star Trek. We have suggested a lot of ways for you to improve your title.
We fixed you.
Over
we know.
70, I don't think 70, like 60 years into your legacy. You are welcome. And on that note, we're going to wrap things up here at SJU for the day. But before we go, Ed Rear, where can the people find you?
Welcome back to SJU. I'm Roxy Stryer, and I'm alongside some amazing human beings. He's known as the real E.G. Edgar in the house.
Shots to Eric Goldman.
Eric Goldman has been ousted. Dang, Eric. Well, he's not here to yell at me, so Eric, if you showed up today, then maybe you'd be the real E.G. Was he even invited? I don't know. Welcome to the table. Emma Fife in the house.
Thank you all so much. Here we are.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
Here we are.
We're
today.
present. We're at a table.
True.
That is true. Who is also here is Joe Starr.
Hi. Also at this table.
I don't know what this new announcery voice I've been doing today. Joe Starr.
Like it. It's good. You should try new things.
Ooh, air horns don't work on me.
Ooh, okay.
Pew, 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 pew.
Sorry, they don't work on you?
Like I don't.
Like if someone shoots an air horn, like you don't react?
No, like people have been telling me that my air horns are not. Pew, 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 pew.
Oh, you don't have a good air horn.
I see.
It's quite ironic that your air horns sound like lasers. Given what we're talking about.
I'm somewhere between lasers and air horns.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah, it's like.
No. No.
You need to create more space, like lift your soft palate more.
Now you sound like a dog that's about to start talking.
Where is that? Ooh.
It's like a Scooby-Doo.
Well, Roxy would be the first word a dog said.
Yes.
That is absolutely correct.
That is a good dog first word, Roxy.
Wow. It's actually a lot of dog names. Anytime that I always when I introduce myself, it's either always, stinging the police, or Roxy Hart, or that's my dog's name.
Wow.
The last one isn't my preference. Let's talk
I was gonna say, if it makes you feel any better, our neighbors across the street when I was a little kid had a dog named Emma. So it was a little bit all of their dogs had like human names. It was like Emma, Tyler.
I like a human name on a dog. All I think of when I hear Emma though is Friends. So you're in my good graces
and the
forever.
whole world that all decided to name their babies Emma after Rachel did so on Friends. I didn't know any other Emmas growing up.
You know what? Screw this show today. What's your name mean to you?
Well, at least your name isn't Khaleesi or something stupid.
That's true. That's true.
A whole lot of people wish they hadn't named their kids Khaleesi before that show ended.
I was named after a literary character, but not.
But you know the conclusion of that character.
I know the conclusion of that character's story. Yeah, exactly.
Joe, where'd your name come from?
The Bible, I think. But
it's a long
unlike the rest of these fictional stories, we don't know how the Bible ends yet.
Stare down the barrel.
Well, no,
Yes.
my name was going to be something like with a lot of syllables because my mom was like going to do that whole like I'm gonna class my baby up thing, and then my dad is from like Oklahoma, and he was like no. So I
What's
did
your
it.
full name?
So Edward Greer, and
No
my
middle name?
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to get doxxed.
Yeah, I don't want to get doxxed. But yeah, it's my middle initial is R. And it's kind of a country ass name. But the bottom line is my dad's name is Edward.
Erg.
Yeah.
Erg.
Stop shooting lasers at me.
Yeah. You're very violent.
Well,
but my dad wanted to name me after, he didn't like the names that my mom kept coming up with. So for like 4 days, but I got home, and for like 4 days I didn't have a name. I was baby for 4 days.
Just baby?
Wow. I was baby.
Baby's
for 4
a cute
days.
nickname, though.
Yeah,
Kept your name, baby.
I wish that I could call myself Big Baby Greer in the house with the hot
Or
takes.
like the movie Baby Boy.
Yeah.
Wasn't that his first name in that
I think his name was Jody in Baby Boy, but yeah,
I
Baby
like
and
that.
Baby Driver's name is Baby or whatever.
Baby's a cute name. The reason I am throwing lasers at all of you guys today, though, is because we are talking Star Wars. Does that make pew, 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 Star Wars? Pew, pew. We're going to be doing some Star Wars show pitches. We also have fan questions at the end of the show, so it is a jam-packed pew pew kind of show today. It actually kind of hurts to pew 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 pew. It like goes in a weird. It tickles. Pew 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 pew.
I want you guys to spending time with my sister, Roxy Stryer, is like watching a kitten discover things for the first time. It's my favorite thing. She'll learn a new noise.
I also am not able to think something and not say it out loud. So that's where you guys hear all of the inner monologue. Let's talk Star Wars, though, guys, because we want to. We are big Star Wars fans at this table. Obviously, I'm the one who watches all of the animated Star Wars series, as we have learned from the past.
And Ed loves everything about Star Wars, as we also
yes, as we know as well. So Ed and I will do the majority of carrying this conversation to help you guys out.
Emma Fife and I will just sort of fade into the background.
Listen to what you guys
I know
have to
this is you're really grasping at straws here, Emma. So you like trying to pull from the.
It's true. I have a passing interest in Star Wars.
You are a girl.
Yeah, that's true. That is also true. So you are just at a disadvantage from the start with this conversation. But do the best you can. Emma.
Thank you. I'll try. I'll try.
Whoa, Star Wars is something that I am not well versed in, but really love. So we're going to talk about it today. We're pitching Star Wars TV shows because, everybody's so upset with Disney Plus that they don't have enough content, and Mandalorian Season 2 is not coming till October, and Cassian Andor is coming after that sometime at some point. So we're pitching our own Star Wars shows. Hear that, Disney Plus? Take our ideas and run with them. Thank you.
For free.
For free.
Hey, but at least we have this as like we could send this video to the WGA.
That's true.
Be like, hey, we came up with this hot stuff, and then boom.
Yeah, let's try it, and we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how that goes.
So, in terms of Star Wars show pitches, Joe, I am coming to you first. Is there a specific character, creative team, or an idea that you feel like they really should try to tackle in the Star Wars universe?
Yeah. All right. So here's my idea. I want to do sort of like a like set after Return of the Jedi, sort of like a West Wing kind of House of Cards with people trying to get the New Republic organized.
That was one of my pitches. Oh, joint pitch. Well, because this is the thing is politics in Star Wars are a big part of it.
Yeah.
And so it would be really interesting to see, and again, and you would struggle a little bit with this because Leia would have to be a very big player in it. Obviously, though, Carrie Fisher, even if she were still alive, would be too old to play Leia at that time, but I would love to see, and she, I think, would be a tertiary character. She'd just appear every once in a while.
Is this a live action show?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a live action show.
See, I almost go the other way, because I think this is one of your big opportunities to figure out, okay, well, how do we navigate around the fact that, like, if we want to play in various Star Wars timelines, like, we don't have all those actors available. So, like, how do you turn that into wins? Like, Rogue One, for me, I feel like you wasted Ben Mendelsohn for a CGI Tarkin.
I know.
Where you could have had,
Just
so,
Mendo
like,
do
how
more.
do you, obviously they exist and they're present, but, like, how do you sort of navigate around? I think that, like, stuff like this is the opportunity to figure out, like, okay,
so
how do you do a
characters?
New Republic thing? Yeah. Like, how do you do a New Republic thing, like, sans Leia?
Yeah.
Where, like, she's present, but, like, not in the show.
Yeah, I think that you can't count her out completely just because in terms of the new canon novels, like, we know that she played a big role within the New Republic. However, we do have a time period where we know that she was pursuing her Jedi training. So maybe that's what it is.
So she's busy. She's doing her thing.
It's exploring
Busy
that time
doing
period
things.
where, like, she's not present, and we are seeing the galaxy attempt to rebuild some sort of political structure without her, and ultimately it's like if it's the sort of final shot of the series is her coming back and being like, let's get this shit in line.
Yeah.
You know?
So like, my thought is, you do like a more hands-on Westworld.
Just checking in, Ed and I agree so far. Yes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Agreed. Rock on.
So you do like
pew, pew, pew.
because obviously there's a lot of like deal making and a lot of like roll up your sleeves and get everyone together with building a galactic wide government.
Yeah.
So my pitch is like two politicians on the ground. Maybe one's like a former Rebel Alliance officer, maybe one's like a career politician, and they'd be played by Constance Zimmer from Unreal and then Everything, because she's incredible.
Yeah.
And then Rhea Seehorn from Better Call Saul, who is
This is a great cast.
awesome.
I'm glad I thought of it.
I think you have like these two sort of people who are like rolling up their sleeves, and they're the ones that are visiting like outer rim planets, and trying to get like huts in line and stuff like that, trying to get like things secured. So it's sort of like a more active Westworld, not like we're all in the Oval Office like trying to determine what decisions we're going to make about the situation on the ground. This is more about the situation on the ground. And then clearly they wouldn't get along. Maybe they're sort of in different places, sort of politically and socially and ideally. And then the person holding them together would be a former Alliance sort of turned security officer, bodyguard who's in charge of protecting them, and Cynthia Erivo would be playing her.
I love Cynthia Erivo.
Can you make her sing?
Incredible.
Yes.
Maybe she air horns.
Yeah. She's I don't know if you guys have watched I don't know if you guys have watched The Outsider.
I haven't, but I hear it's amazing. Thank you.
Everything I've seen her in, night and day different. Every role that she has had is just
she is a chameleon. Like she is able to change it, like every single thing. I mean, she really does, like similar to Michelle Williams, who I feel like is like just so. And Charlize Theron, they like all are able. You don't know what the next kind of role they're going to take. She really does transform.
But I think something like this could follow that success of The Mandalorian, where you can sort of do a monster of the week. Except it's Planet of the Week, Warlord of the Week, Situation of the Week, with an overarching sort of connector.
Yeah.
All right, Emma, did you?
I have
sign
another
off?
pitch. Yeah.
Oh,
so my main pitch. Actually, I hate to keep going to time periods we've already kind of lived in, but this again is something that we've only really seen in animated series, specifically Star Wars Rebels. What I would love to see, and you could expand this even throughout the entire original trilogy and beyond, is
That's what I was thinking.
Story that is about the lower levels of Coruscant.
Yeah.
So the way Coruscant is organized,
I thought you were going to say space whales, but cool.
Yeah, space whales. That was my other pitch. It's just like Enya music and space whales.
And how does Coruscant operate?
Just Star Wars CBD.
Coruscant's like it's got the rich people on top, and poor people on bottom, sort of situation. So we never really go all the way. Like you notice how when Anakin jumped out in the prequels and he fell real far, he never fell down into the ghetto.
Yeah.
He fell right into the skyscraper level. He didn't fall all the way down because that would be death.
So I want to see a story that is about like the oppressed people that live in the lower levels of Coruscant and how they are dealing perhaps internally on Coruscant with uprising against the 1% that live in the upper levels that are at this point, of course, all like Empire loyalists, but then also dealing with the fact that, you probably have sort of a middle class there that has torn allegiances because like their lives are pretty okay, but they have some questions, and I think that you'd have an insider character who sort of is helping the uprising that's happening amongst the poor folk, and that character, I don't know if she would be like the sort of level of like an Agent Callus in Star Wars Rebels, who ends up being a spy for the Rebels and a traitor to the Empire, or if it's more like they're somewhere in between and they just like have sort of a regular job in the middle levels, but whoever that is being played by Gillian Anderson, because I just want her in everything.
Sure. I like that idea a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Like what does like resistance look like when you're a male clerk.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of cool. It's like you're not like a high-ranking like commander in the Imperial Army.
Totally.
That's but yeah, like how's the janitor do their part? That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
that's really kind of cool.
Yeah, and you could obviously have like an upstart sort of organization that, and maybe even bringing up the idea of, okay, well, can we change the status quo? And seeing a lot of people that are hopeless and feel like they can't, and just again, it's like a more personal story uprising, but we can follow the stories of a bunch of different characters very similarly to The Mandalorian, except for maybe not focused on a single character who then all eventually come together to rise up against the Empire.
Yeah, I think that's such a fun idea too, because I've been thinking about that ever too since like in the Trevorrow script dealt so much with like a Coruscant uprising and stuff like that. But I do think there's a cool idea where it's like not everything is just the rebellion and the Empire. Like, what does it look like? I mean, you can even lean into like the idea like the Black Panthers and stuff.
Totally.
Like, what does it look like when a neighborhood just says like,
and also,
okay, we're going to police ourselves? And
by and large, we are told that the Empire is bad, and we see it a little bit, but I think that you just have a really great opportunity here to show just how bad things are, or how not bad things are from a certain point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very Star Warsy.
What do you got?
Well, I've been ruminating on this question because, you know, for years of 20 minutes.
Fourscore and Star Wars years ago.
Well, actually, that's kind of a precursor to where I'm going with this. You know what? I am done. I respect you guys' pitch, and I like it, and I would watch it. I am so done with the time periods. I'm done with the past. I'm done with right before the past. I'm done with it. So it's like 1,000 years in the future. And Baby Yoda is 1,000 because he learned that drinking kale smoothies and doing push-ups and stuff made him live longer than Yoda, because Yoda was like 900 when he died. I think we're so far in the future, and I think we need to deal with the way that the Star Wars universe is constructed. The Star Wars universe is basically the antebellum South with droids. People still have slaves. It's cool.
But it's
droids are their slaves, and they're cool. No, but the people have slaves and droids. They doubling up on the slavery in Star Wars. They got double slavery in Star Wars. So what does that place look like 1,000 years hence or 800 years hence, where people are driving around with Empire flags on their trucks, talking about the final order, fighting against the rebels? That was about states' rights, and they're talking all this crazy dumb crap because they don't remember what it was actually like during how racist and terrible, racist as far as all races, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Grand Admiral Thrawn can't really join the Empire because he's blue, and all these space Confederates don't want a blue guy leading them, and Palpatine has to hide him away. There's all these things that are hinting at, you know, unrest in those times. So I figure there's a future, and at this time, we're going to try to like make the society a modern society finally. I know it's 1,000,000 years ago. It's 1,000, you know, it's, what is it? Many years ago in a galaxy far, far away. Well, now we're up more to now our woke times. So now this is my woke Star Wars. And basically what I want to do is like the Dirty Dozen. I want people who are either slaves or marginalized people all throughout the galaxy to be sought out by one figure that's trying to make them almost like a Dirty Dozen to like to change society as it is, to like graduate it.
Put them on one ship kind of thing?
Well, maybe not put them on the one ship, but
they're forming a team.
Yeah, we're forming a team, right? We're forming a team, and what we're going to do is do something
Guardians
big.
of the Star Wars.
Yeah, well, we're making a team, and we're going to do something big that will take down the new big bad that's trying to reinstitute these old ass ideas and reinstitute some of this old Star Wars stuff. Like, it's okay to have slaves. That was overblown.
Or like it's fine to have free labor from droids or things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now that droids have 1,000 years hence, there's probably their AI is fantastic at this point. I mean, if C-3PO feels pain and fear, imagine what droids would be like in the future. They'd be a whole cast of society, and it'd be about.
I might be a droid.
Yeah, with your pew pew sounds and not ability to beatbox. I mean, we know you're not an NPC. But no, I mean NPC beat machine. Anyway, so what I'm saying is yada yada yada. Florence Pugh is my only bit of casting. I love Florence Pugh.
Yeah, that That was good, Roxy.
That was great.
That was great.
My initial reaction was just to push this chair.
I liked it. I get it.
So yeah, I think overall, it's
Florence
a band
Pugh
of.
is another one who should be in just everything.
She should be in everything.
Yeah, no matter which of these
Yeah.
shows gets made, Florence Pugh is in it.
Yeah. So I just think a band of rebels is trying to basically defeat some big bad that is trying to reinstitute old crap like that and enslave people and bring things back to the good old days. They want to make the universe great again, sort of situation. And they're trying to do that. And so this group of people who are either criminals because they've been criminalized by this new society that's coming up. They're trying to reinstitute these old things.
I like that.
So it's like a dirty dozen, right? These people who are criminals because society is wrong are being broken out by a mysterious figure. And we find out the Professor X of trying to get all these people together to make this strike team, it's because they're all Force sensitive. And Force sensitive is almost like old. Like after Rey died, there was no more Force people for a while or something like that. There's like this real paucity of the Force. We have to work it out ourselves. There's not going to be some magic power person to save us. So basically, Baby Yoda, select kids who move brooms, who don't even know who they are, people like that are being born, but there's not really any development of the Force because we're becoming a more secular society, getting farther and farther away from your ancient religion, you know? And so Baby Yoda is the person that's trying to gather up these other Force users to make a big Dirty Dozen team. And Force powers have evolved because they evolved from being able to levitate some stuff to Force lightning to dyad powers to teleporting me a lightsaber to you and all this type of stuff. So imagine the Force powers 1,000 years hence, and imagine Baby Yoda in full straight Mandalorian armor. Full Mandalorian armor.
Except he's
Old man Yoda.
And he's little. I'm telling you, they pan over to this, like, the music, the John Williams music swells, and the camera pans over to a door opening, and then they have to pan down because Baby Yoda's so little.
Ben Gorenson's music from The Mandalorian.
Like some kind of mashup made by Junkie XL.
I was like,
I'll match it up, don't worry.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
perfect.
Oh, God.
Whatever.
So, yeah.
I really like that idea of like forcing the concepts ahead by 1,000 years because it's like
forcing.
Roxy, you're on fire.
I am on fire.
It's
because
kind of
like enough time has passed where it's like maybe that evolution of the Force is that it is used to whatever like huge version of the Force now is used to maintain that status quo. I think, and then the droid thing is always super interesting to me where at this point I think it's like there is a society of droids. Like you've gone full droid? Remember the Animatrix where they do the shorts about like here's what happened when AI rebelled and they formed their own island and stuff. There's probably a sector of the galaxy now that's just like droids. No fleshies.
Yeah.
Like,
there's probably sectors of the galaxy where it's dangerous to be a person because the hate that hate produced is quite wild.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like a
The hate you give.
Yeah.
Droid style.
Yeah.
I kind of love
Absolutely.
that pitch, actually.
Yeah. So I just feel like it would have some fan service with Baby Yoda being able to be old to be like the way this is, you bastards, or whatever he says to
Old
the
man
kids.
baby.
You bastards you are. I've got one for you guys. Thank you. I'm so good at my Yoda voice. Is anybody watching Love is Blind?
No, I'm not, but I've been told I need
by where this
to.
goes,
But I can't wait to hear this.
Yo, what Unreal did for The Bachelor, this will do for Love is Blind. Premise being all different characters from Star Wars universes are dating through a wall. You don't know what the other person is on the other side, and that you have to get engaged by the time, but you can't ask. You can't ask what they look like. You can't ask about their past in that kind of way, and then we'll know which Star Wars love will stand the test of time, and if love is truly blind.
I mean,
Bam.
this is the only thing I want to see Donald Glover as Lando do. I think this is the next young Lando project.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that's my pitch.
Yeah. My other pitch,
out.
of course, is just Babu Frick droid repair show.
You and the rest
Just
of
an
the
actual
planet,
okay, so on Netflix there is I can't remember what I think it's just called like The Shop, but it is the driest old thing where like a lady will be like, hey, we've had this accordion in our family for years and the accordion no longer works, and they take it to the shop, and the shop is just all these old grizzled British dudes who are like, I'll fix accordions. and it's just a dry ass like fixing an accordion. And
well, now in my head, Babu Frick's got a whole team of puppets that fix droids,
Yes.
and they specialize in different ones.
And I just want to see that show, but with Babu Frick.
Yes.
Where he's like,
I had an accordion growing up.
Did you really?
Explain. I want to know more.
I just did. I did.
I just did.
Yeah.
Why?
I did.
Did you play it?
Yeah, I tried. It wasn't good.
Did you you already had it in your family, or
no?
you
No,
were given an accordion?
I went and purchased an accordion.
So you were young Roxy on the streets of Boston.
Yeah.
Just like.
It was
I'm gonna get wicked pissed at this accordion.
It was, so recorder was my jam, and then I attempted the flute. It didn't go very well.
And so you went accordion.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we probably still have it.
Jeez.
Because most kids just get a clarinet or a trumpet.
No,
and that's where it stops.
My parents' one rule was I could start anything I wanted. I just couldn't quit anything. So I just rode everything into the ground.
So your parents were eventually so annoyed by Roxy playing the accordion.
Okay, you were just like, Roxy, this is done.
Yeah,
No,
okay,
I
you
never
can
stopped.
stop.
I never stopped.
You still play the accordion?
No. I mean, I turned 18 at some point. Like when my parents
And emancipated yourself from the accordion.
Yeah, I wonder what happened.
Is that the accordion cut off?
Where's your accordion?
I'm just trying to think about it. It's probably at my dad's house.
How long did you play the accordion? Why didn't we know this?
I don't know. I am thinking about it. I was not good, and I had books on it and stuff. You guys know I've blacked out much of my life. I'll call him and ask him about this.
That's like Babu Frick blacking out C-3PO's memory.
Yeah.
I'm C-3PO. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, Babu Frick changed your mind about accordion.
So you guys at home, vote for which Star Wars show you want to see. Is it mine, which is clearly the best, or is it one of these? Pew pew pews.
Look, I respect that all you want to see further from Star Wars is aliens doing it.
Totally.
I respect that about you so much.
Because also, just be honest. Would you guys have sex with an alien? Because if
I had this conversation with somebody, and he was he was asking the exact same thing of if an alien came to Earth, would you have sex with an alien?
Is that bestiality or is that not?
I think it's
because they're not animals.
Well, I think it would be for them. Yeah, I think for them it would certainly be that.
Yeah.
Well, I think Donald Glover said something about this.
During the press stuff
with
for
people
Solo.
with the pansexual Lando stuff. He was like, "There's so much stuff in the galaxy to have sex with. Why wouldn't you be?
Why would you limit yourself?"
And I was like, right on, man.
Billy D was really forthcoming with his just I have masculine parts, feminine parts. I'm an 80-year-old man. You know what I mean? I've done everything.
You know what?
Don't trip.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in. You guys let us know at home. Comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends how bizarro this show is and how awesome we are. Hit that bell. Ryan! He's in the corner. You hear,
hey, and don't fetishize Twi'leks, guys. It's not cool.
It's not cool.
Yeah, that is the one area of Star Wars where it's problematic.
It's very problematic.
Yeah, culturally.
Let's talk about less problematic things like our fan questions. Yay!
Go fan questions.
What if there was a rancor behind one of the things?
Jeremy Hooktail. What do you guys think? Hotchtail or Hooktail?
Hooktail.
I think Hooktail.
Jeremy.
Hooktail.
Hooktail.
It's a glottal stop.
At JRHawk214. I've never heard that word before. What is a glottal stop?
Where you go, hog.
Yeah, it's
the Jews.
Yeah,
we do that. That's what they call Hanukkah.
It's pretty common in the in German, and it's sort of it's a softer version of what you're thinking of. So instead of it's like a.
Oh,
it's like
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's ask Jeremy's question. With the new Batmobile coming out,
really important conversations happening on this show.
The new Batmobile coming out with the new movie. What is your favorite movie car? That's a Bostonian car for those of you guys who do not frequent Boston. Ed, coming to you, favorite movie car.
Okay, I have a runner-up because I always break the rules. My runner-up is Blade's car from Blade 1.
It's a good car.
It is so
Very good.
bad.
It's a dope car.
Very good.
That car is bad ass, and it's just the exact sort of Batmobile a realistic person would have, which is why I love the new Batmobile, because Batman drives a car, not a tank, not a giant.
new Batmobile is
Frank
in for
Miller
the
drew
Batman?
a tank one time, and it just infected everybody forever with this ridiculous idea that the best thing a stealth character would do is hop up in a big fat tank that goes 45 miles an hour and roll over everybody's cars and destroy everybody's property on the way to catch a clown. No, no, no. He drives a fast car, like Tracy Chapman. He drives a fast car. Okay, but
Fast
anyway.
enough that you could fly away.
Absolutely. But so bottom line is, but you know, we ain't going nowhere. At the end of the song, we're not going anywhere. So the V8 Interceptor from Mad Max, that's my favorite movie car. They destroy it every time like it's the frickin' Enterprise, too. To trap Mad Max or whatever situation the movie has, so he can't just drive away in his fast car. They smash it every time, and every time I like shed a tear for the V8 Interceptor. It's such a badass car. It's such a emblematic of a certain period of movie history.
Sure.
It's just the baddest car to me. V8 Interceptor from Mad Max.
Dang good car.
Emma, what's your car?
Well, I feel like I want to give a runner-up shout-out to Greased Lightning, just because we reference it when we do fan questions. No, but my actual answer is the Aston Martin DB5, which was first seen in Goldfinger. Yep, Goldfinger. And of course has subsequently been seen in a lot of other James Bond films, including like Thunderball and even more contemporary ones like Casino Royale and Skyfall. But to me, that is the James Bond car.
Yeah.
When I think of James Bond and I think of James Bond's car, it's the Aston Martin.
Are you a big James Bond person?
I love James Bond.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So yeah, that is my pick, is the Aston Martin DB5.
Joe?
I got a runner-up too because I'm also a rule breaker.
What is wrong with you guys?
I can't make up my mind.
Okay.
I gotta go with the Adam West Batmobile.
Oh,
nice.
yes! I love the Adam West Batmobile.
It's so cool.
It's so dumb. And
I love it. So, yeah.
He gets cool. You say dumb.
Oh my god.
No, it is. Man. It's the dumbest thing alive.
I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Like, everything about that show is so perfectly campy and over the top and silly, and it knew exactly what it was. And if you are overlooking Adam West Batman, you're missing out.
You got so many lessons in that
You're
car.
missing
The
out.
importance of buckling up.
Yes.
Oh, do you remember when he wouldn't start the car? Because Robin's like, "Why? We're only going a couple blocks," and he stops the car.
Yes.
Adam West stops the car, and he's like, "Robin."
I think there's an episode where he like tries to drive the Batmobile drunk, and it's like,
Yep.
oh my
Burt
god.
Ward, extremely underrated. Just in
Oh yeah,
general.
he's super great on that show.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
great. I like your guys' cars, and you all gave runner-up, so we'll just make one of those mine. I am partial to the DeLorean. I am somebody who like wanted to one day in my life. When I was a kid watching that, I was like, one day I'll own a car that opens up like this.
And those doors, man.
I just thought that was like the coolest thing I had ever seen in person. It's not as practical or cool, and also very short, and it's challenging to like figure out.
But you can get down into
I mean, it is a bad car.
It's
in reality.
It's a horrible car in reality. There's no way a DeLorean could have even accelerated to 88 miles per hour. It would fall apart.
Yeah, but my little kid brain likes it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very dope looking.
Yes. Did you
Incredibly dope
know
looking.
that in the original first draft of Back to the Future, the DeLorean was not what the time machine was going to be. The time machine was going to be a refrigerator.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Oh.
Yep.
How's a refrigerator going to go 88 miles an hour? That doesn't even make sense.
It would have been very different. This was like early.
Here's a challenge with sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
Because I think about this sometimes because you reminded me of Ender's Game. Because I think you're either in like the hyper realistic sci-fi camp, or you're in the batshit crazy Robotech Star Wars, sci-fi, and I will always be there. You know, people, oh, well, but how does the bombs just fall in space? I don't care. I just care that it looked cool that bombs fell in space. Because the fridge, because I'm sure there were rules around, like, the fridge of, like, well, because of relativity and time and space, blah, 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 you don't have to move this and that. And Ender's Game explored that, those books. Eventually they discovered a faster-than-light ship that never actually went anywhere. It just appeared in places, which, neat.
Yeah,
that's so boring.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's the difference between a book idea and a movie idea, and I think those are things that people kind of miss when they go, "No, the book was better." The book was better because your imagination did 80% of the work, dude.
Yeah.
And they were able to go down every little back alley of people's minds and stuff.
Imagine a Back to the Future where Michael J. Fox is like, "Are you telling me you put a time machine in a DeLorean? Like, what? Like, I can't imagine."
In a refrigerator?
Yeah, like, it loses that charm and that camp and that, like, absurdity.
Right, yeah, because it's like everybody has a refrigerator, and the DeLorean was meant to be this sort of luxury futuristic vehicle that just was really a horrible car.
Yeah, I just wish they had to like maybe like the time machine is very small. I made the time machine as it's like a micro machine, so I kind of had to. The terrorists were chasing me, so I had to like place it in John DeLorean's DeLorean. So it's like he's hidden so it's like it can't go 88 miles an hour because all this white powder is in the car, and it's weighing it down as it throw it out, and it's like hitting people's faces and like, woo!
We've gone to a weird place. Let's get to the next fan question. That like combines like some birds and
every
prey
80s
stuff.
DeLorean was full of cocaine.
I'm acknowledging John DeLorean's drug dealing past.
I also just love that John DeLorean drives a DeLorean.
It's market stuff. Like, you think Elon Musk doesn't drive a Tesla truck sometimes?
Okay.
Alex, our fan out there, hopefully still our fan after this, at a hubcap says, movie or TV death that impacted you the most? Wow, they said TV too. That really opens up a lot of stuff. Emma, I'm coming to you first on this one. Movie or TV death that impacted you the most? No runners up, you cheaters.
Mine is a TV death, and it is a deep cut. So there is this K-drama that I like that is called Scarlet Heart Rio. It came out in 2016. And basically, it's the story of this young woman who sort of dies in the present and reincarnates into like one of her past incarnations, but with all of her like contemporary memories. It's unclear whether she dies. She like sort of drowns, but anyway. And then it's basically this reverse harem story of her, and there's all these princes in like very early Korea. So throughout there's a whole bunch of political blah blah blah. At one point in the story, the 10th prince, he basically gets married off to this woman who he just is not in love with, because of course he's in love with the main girl. They're all in love with the main girl. But eventually he and his wife, who's like a very Mulan kind of character, like she's a warrior, she's great, and she's so in love with him. And then eventually he does reciprocate her love and everything's great. And of course, either at the end of the same episode or the following episode, there's like this crazy war that's raging on right now, and they both get killed. And I was just sobbing. Oh my God, I was completely floored. You would think if you saw me after this that someone had just like come and murdered everyone that I personally care about. I was so invested in this.
That's storytelling magic, those moments where in a TV show or a movie, someone's like, "Hey, I love you so much. Everything's gonna be great."
Yes.
Because then, like, 2 frames later, like, they're gonna get an arrow in their throat.
Well, because
but like shows and movies that can like get like stealth that past you. Oh, and then in hindsight, you're like, of course.
Yeah.
They were nice to each other a minute ago.
Within the context of the story, like you knew that this army was coming and that this could probably happen.
But you didn't want to believe it.
Oh, it hurts so much.
Joe, coming to you. Most impactful TV movie death.
I mean, I gotta talk about all of the Autobots in Transformers the movie.
What's happening?
No, that's a big one. I'll ride with Joe on that one.
I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. Transformers movie. Big toy commercial.
It is.
Lots of little kids going to see it, including Joe Starr. And the death everybody remembers is Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime dies in Transformers the movie.
Optimus Prime has died a lot.
Optimus Prime has died many times. That was the big one. Everybody remembers that. But before Optimus Prime dies, they wipe out the entire toy line to make room for new toys. And they do so in the most Game of Thronesy, like just violent, murked up way possible. Because this is a show where no one's ever really shot each other before. It's like G.I. Joe, where it's like the lasers go by each other for a while and then the bad guys are like, let's run!
They give the illusion of a battle going on, but no one actually gets hurt.
And so, there's never really been casualties. I'm trying to fact check myself as I say that. Yeah, no, up to that point, there's never been like casualties or anything like that in the Transformers
mass
cartoon.
Murder.
And then so all of a sudden, the Decepticons, all the bad guys like break into this Autobot ship and just waylaced. Oh my God. Waylaced. I can't say it. They murder everybody. And not just like murder, like just like riddling them with lasers and like smoke's coming out of their eyes and mouth, like their souls are leaving their body as they fall dramatically to the ground limp. And to go from like no one gets hurt on this show to oh God, oh God, oh God. You never forget that. No, like that stays with you forever. It's a brutal show.
It was impactful.
It was a brutal, impactful moment.
Yeah. All right, EG, the real one. What you got?
The
real one.
Okay, I don't have a runner-up because Roxy admonished me and laser shot me.
Yeah.
So
Message received, Roxy.
Message received, Roxy. Jeez. So I think I am. Dan is not here, so I must channel Dan with my next person, and it is Quint's death in Jaws. It got me even as a kid because one thing I could understand from the first time I saw Jaws was he told a big ass story about how he was in the Navy and then he dropped the Hiroshima bomb and all this jazz, and he was in the water with sharks for days as his friends were mowed down and eaten, and that's why he'll never put on a life jacket again. He'll never do that again. And then his boat is sinking. 40 years later, his boat is sinking. He's got a stupid sheriff and a college boy on his boat. He's gone after this shark because he has this ridiculous vendetta about sharks because they ate his friends. And he dies by shark. It's like, it's not even poetic, or it's not like how George Lucas liked to have things rhyme, like things happen in multiple movies. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's too appropriate. When you let someone hurt you that bad and have real estate in your head and you dedicate your life to revenge against them, you have signed your own death warrant. You have killed yourself. They took your life and then you let them take your life.
It's such a good shorthand, like Captain Ahab almost, right? Where it's like, because I don't even know if it's like he's had this lifelong vendetta, but you have this moment where you've got to assume that before nails down the chalkboard to get everyone's attention in that meeting, he's listening to everything, and all of a sudden this guy who's just been drifting and just from bottle to bottle and boat ride to boat ride and charter to charter, like something clicks and it's like, I kill this shark, I get some closure, and it goes south immediately.
Right.
He opens up a little bit, to these two strangers, and then everything goes south.
Right.
And that's so cool. Like, that's such good storytelling.
In his last moments, he could think, oh, this only happened because I got the college boy and the sheriff on my boat. And not necessarily put it together that you're the one who smashed the radio. You're the one who decided to lead out into deeper water. You're the one who tied yourself to this freaking shark. You know what I'm saying? You're the one who precipitated all this. You're the one who didn't admit that you were overmatched. That's one of the reasons why I love No Country for Old Men and all its great deaths. Is one of the things that Tommy Lee Jones says is, look, I'm an old ass man. These new criminals are just this thing I don't understand. I feel overmatched. And he decides to stop being a police officer because he knows the next time he takes his old ass out there, he's going to get capped by somebody who doesn't have Leave It to Beaver going through their head when they're talking to cops. You know what I'm saying? He's going to get capped by somebody who has no morals this new breed that he doesn't understand. And Quint, same thing. He thought he understood sharks. He thought he had intimate understanding of them.
Yeah.
But they are unknowable, dummy. They're nature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He thought he had the psychic connection to a shark that they actually try to add later in Jaws.
Yeah. So to me, it was just about, like I said, I'm getting real deep with it, but it was just, to me, as a movie death, it symbolized, number one, don't let people set up real estate in your head because you'll end up dying. Number two, when you are overmatched, admit it and get help. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And number three, there ain't no damn destiny, bro. It wasn't your destiny to save Amity from this shark. That's not necessarily what it was. You know what I mean? So it's like, I just think all those thoughts coalesce whenever I think about that death, and it really affected me, obviously.
Yeah.
I think that was such an amazing explanation of why that was.
I just got sad when robots died.
Thanks.
A lot. So we went all over the map with that one, guys. I've mentioned it a bunch of times on the show before, but nobody seems to have seen this movie. When what happens in Hardball happens, when G-Baby dies, that affected the rest of my life. That movie gutted me. It was the first time I cried in a movie as a kid. And if you guys have not seen it, I'm telling you. But, I think that every time that somebody died in even something as silly as Marissa Cooper dying on the OC, realizing what happens on shows when they there were so many impactful ones. More recently, obviously, Game of Thrones had so many of them as well. Stepmom was a big movie for me growing up. That was.
I was also thinking My Girl.
My Girl was huge.
Oh yeah. That's the thing.
I told you guys you could have no runner-up, so I could take all of them. I just started naming movies, guys. Let's get out of here. That was it for SJU today. The real EJ. The real EG. Wow, EJ. Now I'm giving you a whole different last name.
Ernie Johnson, I love him. He's a great broadcaster.
Where can the people keep up with you?
Just real quick, Nerd Goat podcast, obviously, and Reboot It YouTube channel. We take a crack at rebooting stuff, and it's funny that we talked about Star Wars this episode because our most popular episode with a bunch of views is us rebooting Star Wars and talking about
all of it?
Stripping it all the way down.
Dang.
Maybe Sheev isn't even in it. Maybe there's no Chewbacca. Maybe, you know what I mean? We stripped it all the way down and tried to rebuild
What you
it.
trying to do to Chewie?
No, we're not doing the Love Is Blind thing, right? So check out Reboot It YouTube channel. Our most popular video is about us rebooting Star Wars, so it's kind of interesting that we did it. We did sort of rebooty things with Star Wars here today.
Cool. Emma?
I'm at Emma Fife all over the internet, wherever Emma Fifes are sold. Check out my podcast, Not Safe for Weebs. We talk about anime and video game ships and some questionable content surrounding the pairings that we're discussing. Also, if you're stuck in your house and you want to watch some good original Star Wars programming, Joe and I were on a Star Wars RPG many moons ago. It's called Pencils and Parsecs. It is all on Hyper RPG's YouTube channel. You can also find the links to it via my website, and I have it broken down into nice playlists on my own YouTube channel. So it's pretty good. It's some good Star Wars if you want to watch it.
Pretty good. Joe, tell the people for once where they can find you.
I mean, that's a pretty good option if you want to see Emma play a cool Mandalorian captain and me play a weird gender fluid or sensitive idiot. Yeah.
That sounds pretty on brand for you.
That's a good option. That's a real good option.
I'm everywhere at Roxy Stryer, YouTube.com.
On the first day of spring, the White Rock Pier is bustling. You wouldn't even know that there is a pandemic, and there is very little room to keep your distance. Especially in this lineup outside of a cannabis dispensary.
They're just standing like sheep, and they're not thinking about anybody but themselves. Everybody's got to come together in this.
Patricia Rogers has a front row seat to it all. She says she's doing her part by staying inside, but as for others,
people are not taking the whole virus seriously enough. They absolutely are not.
Some have gone online to criticize other people's behavior. One person tweets,
"In Germany, they're drafting in the army. Soldiers readying to replace civil servants who may get overwhelmed." With 22% of its population over the age of 60, Germany may soon see the death rate rapidly rise.
We're all aware that the fight against coronavirus is a marathon. In the end, it will come down to being able to provide and maintain resources. That'll be a task for the German army in particular.
Enthusiastically, if not necessarily tunefully, residents in one Bavarian town sang Ciao Bella in solidarity with Italy, the unwitting leader in a race no one wants to win. In Italy itself, the radio plays the national anthem at 11 every morning, a patriotic boost that people needed today after the death rate in Lombardy was reported to have risen by 380, the highest so far in a single day. In France, they don't kiss on Main Street anymore, they disinfect it. Paris residents have retreated to their homes as ordered by the government.
We are at the start of this crisis, as I reminded the French people at the beginning of this week. We put in place measures to absorb this first wave. It's a race against the virus. But we're only at the beginning, and we need to continue to be reactive.
The French have world-class hospitals, highly trained and motivated medical staff, and the best equipment. And yet, like the Italians, they'll struggle if, as expected, they're overwhelmed with patients. So what then will it be like if COVID-19 sweeps through a camp of Syrian refugees in Lebanon, where it's hard just to keep the kids clean in normal times? Each family has been given an extra bar of soap and what they call awareness training.
We need protection. Our situation is bad. We don't have houses to stay in. We have nylon sheets, and nylon carries germs by itself. We don't have walls or anything. We don't have face masks for protection. We don't have soap or sanitizers. Whoever breathes, his neighbor could feel it.
They're trying to teach people about the disease in Idlib, where millions of Syrians have been displaced. Hard to see how they'll manage when the hospitals have been bombed and everyone's on the move. They're disinfecting the school tent while the children look on. Witnesses to a new catastrophe that's sweeping not just Syria, but Europe and beyond.
Lindsay Hilson there. Well, joining me now from northwestern Germany is Peter Liese, an MEP and a former GP. Peter Liese, thanks for coming on our programme. Can we just start off by clarifying some figures? Is it true that Germany has almost 20,000 cases of coronavirus, but only 66 deaths?
Yeah, I will just double check the figures on my other device, but I think that it's true. Yeah, I have it here.
Yeah.
Because I have almost 20,000 cases, 53 fatalities, compared to 9,300 cases and 167 fatalities, for example, in the UK. So let me say first that we are all in this together. And I think cooperation in science, cooperation in exchange of good practice is more important than ever. And I think it's not important that politicians are blaming each other. That's why I think we need to fight together, but also we need to learn lessons. Italy, in the moment, is worse than China. They have more fatalities than China. And in Wuhan, we have already, I think, very, very correct information. No new infections during the last 2 days.
Okay.
So this is important to learn that we don't go for the Italian way, but for the Wuhan way, how strange it may sound. So now to the figures. The German figures are quite high in infections, and they are quite low in fatalities. And I think there are three explanations. Nobody knows it really, but I talked to a lot of experts, and the first reason may be that, in fact, our health system is quite good. You just have reported the ratio of intensive care beds. That may be a point, but I think it's a minor point. Then the second point is that many of the people we tested now, and they are positive, they come from skiing areas in Austria and northern Italy. And when you go skiing, you are not severely diseased. You are not over 80, you don't have any heart problem, any lung problem, which means that we may see higher figures in Germany when the virus comes in homes for elderly or in hospitals. But the most important point is you shouldn't believe in the figures, because the figures of infected people, confirmed cases, only shows how much you test. And I'm convinced that we have tested a little bit more, definitely not enough, but we have tested more than the UK, more than Italy, and more than Spain.
Right.
So you have a higher fatality rate. It's only a statistic effect. It's just because we tested more. So we have all more infections than the official figures shows, and that shows how important containment measures are.
Right. But that's a really interesting answer. But when you compare the number of ICU beds in Britain to Germany, 6.6 per 100,000 in our country, 29.6 in your country, that is an alarming discrepancy for us.
Yes, it is, but it's not the worst, because at the moment, very few beds are used in Germany. So we are preparing for the worst. I'm preparing myself. I'm practicing to be fit for the purpose when I have to work as a general practitioner again. But we are not yet in the situation where we need all these beds. Why